Hello everyone, and welcome to the Fictional Vortex. So we are back with an interesting movie on what if Naruto was Chaos Demon with Legacy of Orochimaru. But before we start, I just want to remind you to please subscribe to my channel and hit the like button if you enjoy my content. Let's start the story. Demons and their seals. Can I kill this brat? Naruto telepathically asked Hinata as his right eye twitched in annoyance. No, this is, after all, an escort and bodyguard mission. Hinata reminded him with a mental sigh. How about afterwards? Naruto pointed out. No love, you can't, Hinata said firmly. Are you two even listening to me? Shion, priestess of the land of demons, demanded. Naruto tilted his head, giving her a mocking look. Oh, I'm sorry, did you say something? I was so utterly terrified by the prospect of my imminent death that I got lost in my thoughts, thinking of an epitaph and all that. No. I see you are not taking my words seriously at all. Shion scowled as her aide, Taruho, tried to placate her. Maybe it's because you don't seem to understand who you are talking to, child. Naruto said coldly as he fixed her with a firm look, freezing her in place. I am not some mere guard whose line of work is keeping thugs and bandits at bay. I am not some advisor that bends backwards to your whims. I am a shinobi. The moment we put this Hite aid on, it's all but certain we at least halved out. Lifespan. Out of a generation, we're lucky if we can have one person die of old age, rather than get killed in battle. This is how shinobi work. Live, kill and die for our village. So whatever prediction of death you may have for me, it doesn't scare me a damn bit since I've been prepared to die before you could even talk properly. Is that perfectly understood? Why yes. Shion whispered, looking at him in surprised fascination. Besides, it's not like some pathetic demon like Moryo could kill me. Naruto snorted in an arrogant tone. I fought Biju, demon lords, and either defeated them or obtained a draw. This guy is nothing on them. Or me, for that matter. He added to himself as his teammates for this mission. Hinata, Lee and Karen shook their heads in amusement while the young priestess grew an annoyed tick mark at his attitude. Flashback. After awakening from the coma induced by his transformation. You gave us quite a scare there, Naruto. Tsunade admitted as she took a seat at the side of his bed, having arrived as soon as word of his awakening reached her. I don't think I ever felt so helpless. Even when Dan died, at least I knew that it wasn't that my skills that were too weak, but his wounds too great. With you, we didn't even know what was really wrong with you. All we knew was that it was caused by that thrice-damned hunk of rock those fucking idiots from Hoshigakure have been practically worshipping. Sorry. Naruto muttered awkwardly. I really didn't want to put you in that kind of position again. You didn't end up with any phobias again, did you? Thankfully, no, Tsunade snorted before fixing him with a firm look. How are you feeling, and I mean really feeling? Well, Naruto considered things a bit. On one hand, I don't feel any pain and don't seem to be on the verge of exploding. But, Tsunade pressed on. On the other hand, my control is shot to hell. Naruto attempted to raise his fist to rub his forehead, only to smack himself over the face. See what I mean? Muscle memory all but gone. Tsunade grimaced. That will be a pain to recover. You'll have to relearn everything from walking to taijutsu. And I mean everything. You can barely control your facial muscles and tongue to talk properly, aren't you? Yeah, not to mention that I'm pretty sure I'm physically stronger than before. I don't know why though. My muscles at least look the same, Naruto said thoughtfully. Hold still a bit. Tsunade made a couple of hand signs before pressing her green glowing hands on his thigh, before pulling away just as quickly. Yeah, like I suspected. The quality and composition of your body change, even if your appearance did not. To that of a demon, right? Naruto asked rhetorically. You knew this would happen? Tsunade asked. Of course. Naruto shrugged. The transformation I went through was pretty much like the one Negi did, with a few key differences. What differences? Tsunade demanded. Well, for starters, it was not triggered by me losing control over my darkness, but by something else forcing my darkness to overwhelm me. Naruto began. Fortunately, I had accounted for this possibility though I had Q-chan's Yuki in mind at the time. Secondly, unlike Negi I did not momentarily die and got reborn as a Shinso-like demon. This is something that took me a lot of time to achieve, since if I died. The Shiki Fuin. Tsunade grimaced. Yep. Naruto nodded. So I had to change that bit. Thankfully, with the Shinso vampire traits from Evangeline, Tengu traits from Setsuna and demon folk traits from Mana, not to mention all the influence Kyuubi's Yuki has had on my body, I was able to change the death and rebirth part to something akin to evolution. I think I'll call it transcendence, since I've surpassed my human condition without discarding it through death, like demons are usually born. Interesting, the transformation part of our bloodline helped in this, I believe. Tsunade must. A lot. I had to use as the means, with Eva and Kyuubi's anatomy as the goal, but I think it worked rather well, with a small exception, of course. Naruto frowned as he opened his left eye, revealing the demonic sight glowing maliciously. So what happened, exactly? Tsunade leaned forward. I'm no seal expect, but with the Hake Fuin no longer on your body I have to guess you destroyed it? Assimilated would be more appropriate, Naruto corrected. Part of the ritual was an overpowered mix of the Ekmednis Tun Seiken and an exorcism spell, which in a nutshell broke any and all personality within the contents of the seal before imprinting my own on it. The next part was adding all that power to my own, using those 4 huge crystals to create artificial energy cores, the ones for mana and ki merging with my own. This way, I can now naturally produce mana, ki, yuki and riryoku. The final part was adapting my body to take strain of such power, which ended up turning me into a demon from an anatomical standpoint. Interesting, Tsunade pondered. I'll have to give you a full examination later. For now, rest. About that eye though. Removing it won't solve the issue, and healing it is out of the question since my body recognizes it as healthy. Naruto sighed. I might be able to see with it if I use a lot of Yuki though but I'm not taking any chances right now. I'll place some seals on it to make sure it won't act up again. Flashback end the revelation that he had become a demon had been pretty much expected by the rest of the Fuin, what with Eva and Negi's own experiences. And, it obviously did not bother them one bit, especially the 5 Biju members of the Fuin clan. Now, having fully assimilated more than 9 taels worth of Yuki, Riryoku and bumping his mana and ki reserves to the same level, he would be even stronger than Kyuubi and Eva combined, when he managed to cast an Artiscat spell without it blowing up in his face. In the end, he had to have Jiraiya cover him from head to toe with resistance seals, which impeded any and all movement to a great degree. In other words, allowing him to function as a normal person even though a mere flick of his fingers could form craters. Even as he toured the priestess's mansion with Taruho as guide, he could not help but be depressed, having been reminded by his condition, or rather the rehab that followed. Evangeline had merely been turned into a Shinso vampire by the Lifemaker. Her power she had gained herself, from her massive mana reserves to her superhuman physical abilities. While she had been sealed at Mahora, the only reason why her physical proudu that of a 10-year-old human girl was because her superhuman strength relied directly on her mana, which was almost completely sealed off, leaving her enough to live on. In Negi's case, while normally the inhuman energy Evangeline had left behind in the Magia Arabia scroll would have either killed or turned a human into a mindless monster, his own ancestry had thumped most of the physical changes and merely granting him a slight increase in the quality of his body as well as the Shinso regeneration and energy reserves. Naruto, however, already had too many demonic elements in himself for anything but a drastic change to occur. He had been changed inside and out to function on Yuki, Riryoku, mana and ki, to harness his full power without sustaining damage himself, something akin to a dream to Jinchuriki who were both being healed and harmed by their Biju cloaks, the second form several times more than the first. The name Blood Shroud said enough about the price for using it. Tsunade had to throw out the window most of what she knew of biology when it came to him, literally starting off from scratch, and she started small, delegating a willing assistant to obtain the samples. Flashback. Oi! Anyone here? Naruto called out as he entered Tsunade's cabinet within the compound, ruthlessly squashing his annoyance at having all his abilities unavailable at the moment. The loss of his sensory skills were what depressed him the most, as they were something he had honed practically his entire life in order to keep him safe from violent villagers and later enemy ninja. I'll be right there, Naruto-kun. A voice called out, but with it being muffled by a closed door and with Naruto's enhanced hearing not fully in tune he could not recognize it, but assumed it was Tsunade. Just undress and take a seat. Shrugging, the blonde stripped to his boxers and sat down on edge of the hospital issue bed. A couple minutes later the office door opened and in came Kushina, wearing a white nurse outfit which hugged her bodies quite nicely, emphasizing her curves while the miniskirt showed enough of her thighs to entice him even without the neckline of her shirt being deep enough to give him a good look of their cleavage. 36DD, Naruto must as he looked at Kushina before mentally shaking his head at such thoughts popping up. I've been around Jiraiya for too long. So, I take it Tsunade asked you to do whatever she asked me here for. Yes, she's a bit busy so she delegated me to take specific samples from you. Kushina smiled. I think it might have something to do with her desk spontaneously combusting when she left to take a break a few days ago. Ah, Shizune finally gathered duplicates of all the documents she torched and is blackmailing her with a sake ban. Naruto nodded sagely. It was 5th time since she took the hat. I'll start, if that's okay with you, by taking a chakra sample using a couple methods. Kushina suggested. Alright. Naruto nodded at her to go ahead. First off, I'll use this seal. Kushina said as she took a palm-sized seal tag and placed it on his chest. It will draw a small portion of your energy. Normally, that would mean chakra, but you now have Yuki and Riryoku permanently mixed with it so I won't be surprised if it draws on that as well. She informed him as she activated the seal, which lit up for a second before turning blue. That's it. She took it and placed it in a plastic sample bag. Next, I want you to try pushing your chakra in one of these, she said, giving him another identical seal tag. Naruto placed a finger on the tag and closed his eyes in concentration, trying to feel his chakra and chakra only. It was difficult, but after tracing both the mana and the ki back to their respective cores he was able to draw on those only, though a bit of Yuki and Riryoku got mixed into it on the way to the seal tag as well. That's it for the chakra samples. Blood samples next, Kushina informed him. First off, we'll extract with a syringe. She grinned at the nervous twitch of his eye. Still hate them, huh? If I didn't have a healing factor, my ass would be full of holes from those things. Naruto muttered in annoyance. Shaking her head, she tied his arm with a cord to stop the blood flow, found the vein, and quickly took the sample. Protocol says to disinfect it with alcohol so it heals quickly and healthy, but Kushina leaned in and slowly licked off the slight bit of blood that had poured out after removing the needle, leaving behind smooth skin. You obviously don't need it. Never did. Naruto grinned. And it looks like you're beginning to like working with your element even more. Only with you, Naruto-kun. Your blood is really tasty. Kushina teased. Now, I will make a cut on your other arm and forcefully draw some blood with my powers. Try not to heal the wound too quickly. She instructed as she placed a vial next to his arm before making a deep cut with a scalpel and pressing her hand on the wound before pulling away along with a stream of blood which ended when the cut healed completely, leaving Kushina to deposit the blood in the vial. That's it for the blood samples, she informed him. What's next? Naruto inquired. First, a saliva sample. Open wide, and try not to choke, she told him before using the tampon on the very end of his tongue, having him have to suppress his gag reflex. Good. Next, I need a hair. She simply reached out and plucked a couple from his head and deposited them in a plastic bag. Anything else? Naruto inquired only to pause as Kushina began to rub the strain on his boxers. Yes, a sperm sample. Kushina smirked at the widening of his eyes. Naruto looked at her a bit hesitantly. I'm not some shy little girl, Naruto-kun. Kushina rolled her eyes. Fine, if you really want to see me jack off feel free to watch. Naruto rolled his eyes as his member twitched. Sorry, Naruto-kun, you're not allowed to make effort, remember? Kushina said with an utterly false apologetic tone. So I'll have to help you with that. At this point Naruto distinctly remembered that before the mission to Hoshigakure he had pretty much been hiding from would-be rapists that were officially known as his fiancés. Clearly, they were not the only ones hunting him. You're enjoying this way too much. Naruto shook his head ruefully as Kushina pretty much ripped off his boxers. So will you, stud? Kushina smirked. So, I gotta ask, how much is it turning you on, getting a handjob from your mother? Not as much as a blowjob would. Naruto admitted, deciding to screw morals and decency and go with the flow. Naruto-kun, you pervert. Kushina bit her lip as she felt her body begin to react even more to the sight before her. You're becoming quite shameless. You don't say. Naruto grunted as Kushina increased the pace of her strokes. You know, I think you got a bit bigger. Tsunade said you were 10 inches long before. Kushina pointed out. You're, what, 11 inches now? She wondered after a critical glance. The benefits of evolution. Naruto grunted as she gave his entire length a long lick. You know, Kushina, considering that we were at 1 point mother and son, this comes as quite a surprise to me, you know. Well, I've pretty much abandoned the idea of a mother-son relationship as soon as I finished looking through the memories you've allowed me to see. In all honesty, you're more mature than I am, she admitted. But I still wanted to be close to you. I still care for you deeply, though not as a son, rather, well, ever since that time in the bath with Kyuubi and Makoto, I've been getting turned on more and more just by being around you. And after that incident with Ino, it was like a dam burst and all that was left of my restraint was washed away. She paused in her ministrations to look him straight in the eye. I think I love you, Naruto-kun. I'm not entirely sure, considering how my last relationship ended, but she bit her lip and looked down, only for her head to jerk up as Naruto's hand caressed her cused as well. When it comes to emotions, but I'm attracted to you, Kushina-chan, quite a lot. I have been for a while now. Naruto spoke. I think I love you as well, but let's leave that for later. Right now, I want you, he whispered huskily. Flashback and his rehabilitation in the physical arts had taken surprisingly little time, mostly due to the most amazing jutsu ninja kind has created during its 600+ years of existence. Seriously, he had actually made a small shrine for the scroll containing the Kage Bunshin no Jutsu in the library. Even a brain dead monkey could use it if it had enough chakra and a poor understanding of the theory, especially when using the cross hand sign. Sure, it wasted almost half of the chakra one put in the jutsu if they did not have enough control, but considering how large Naruto's reserves were, the less he had left, the better he could control it. Still, it had taken him approximately 11 years within the diorama sphere to gain full control over his body, a little over half a year in the outside world, enough to take off most of his physical restraints on regular days. However, while the shape, per se, of his body, his inner structure had changed quite a bit. From what Kufei and Eva had explained to him, the human body had 3 types of muscles: white muscles, red muscles and pink muscles. White muscle is fast contraction muscle, used in fast exercises, for quick bursts of power but had low stamina. Red muscle is slow contraction muscle, used in exercise requiring long-time contractions, with great stamina but low overall power. Pink muscle is a combination of the 2 other muscles, giving you explosive power and stamina, but existed in rather small quantity in the human body, though it could be built up after extensive workouts with a person's maxed out weight limit, though it was a slow and exhausting process. The transformation via the Magia Arabia had had different effects on the users concerning their body structure. Evangeline had had almost all of her muscles converted into pink muscle through her transformation into a Shinso. However, due to low muscle mass and age, her physical power was dependent on her magical reserves, hence her severely weakened state during her time at Mahora. Negi had had far more muscle mass than Eva when his transformation had occurred, but only around 40% had been changed into pink muscle, mostly which had been red muscle, as his fighting style was not based on outlasting his opponents. Rather, he focused on quickly putting them down. Xiao had been rather unfortunate with her transformation. It never truly occurred. Instead, while her soul had been attuned to the dark magic, her body had only slowly changed to match the upgrades she should have received, mostly through her own use of the Fuin full transformation, after studying Eva's body as well as Nibi's, who was more physically predisposed between the 2 early released Biju. In Naruto's case, however, not only had almost all his muscle been converted to the high-quality pink muscle, but even that had been enhanced further by the spiritual and demonic energies that Eva and Negi had gained only after their transformation. Naruto, having them beforehand, had had them take part in his evolution, which had led to him not being able to hold a titanium spoon without making dents in it. Still, the sad fact was that even after regaining his control, all his muscle memory in terms of taijutsu had been erased. Even worse, while he had relatively quickly relearned the academy taijutsu style, as well as Goken and several styles of the Chinese martial arts that he had used before, even learning all he had on Juken to the point of being near mastery, the simple fact was that it no longer fit his body. In the past, His muscle structure was mostly of red muscle with relatively small amounts of white and pink muscle, using speed-enhancing techniques like shundo to compensate for the lack of sudden explosive power. Now though, he no longer needed them on a general basis as they would merely waste his energy which, while enormous, was not something he was willing to throw around like nothing in real battle. Therefore, he had taken up the task of creating his own style, much like Guy Maeda had created the Goken. Of course, just like Guy had used the Senju style as inspiration, Naruto used large parts of the Goken, Juken, Kawazu Kumite, Kung Fu, Tai Chi, Jujitsu, Aikido as well as Kenka enhanced Iaken to develop what he decided to call Kanten Ryu aka Chaos Dragon Flow style, for multiple reasons, from his fast unpredictable movements that seemed to flow like a maelstrom, to his demonic form being of the draconic kind. Similar to Negi's, which tuned his Kanka aura to easily compress around his limbs in dragon-like claws as well as enveloping his white feathered wing and his black scaled one in a dragon-shaped aura as well, with multiple tails depending on how much Yuki or Riryoku he was using to enhance the technique. In terms of ninjutsu and magic, he was still fighting an uphill battle. He was relatively up to the same level he had been when he had undergone the transformation, true, but rather than considering it an achievement, it was actually quite the disappointment to him. After all, with all the hard work he had put up in mastering his inner energies ever since he had began to train seriously around the age of 6, after all the sacrifices he had made, to be reduced to the position of sealing off almost 80% of one's power simply because he could not truly control that much was quite a blow to his ego. Hundreds of thousands of Kage Bunshin under Chishio Bunshin continued to work at all times in various diorama spheres to gain greater control over his energies. In almost 3 years of continuous work he had only managed to reduce the amount of power sealed off from 85% to 80%, only by 5%, and while he knew exactly what was holding him back from going further, he also knew he was not ready to face that challenge. Flashback pain. That was all he knew at the moment. Endless excruciating pain as his body tore itself apart from inside out and then reset itself in a healthy form before it began to destroy itself again. He did not understand how it was happening. He did not care how it was happening. All he knew was that it was that goddamned hunk of rock's fault, and all he wanted was to make the pain end. Not through death, no, that would damn not only him, but his friends and loved ones as well. What he needed was to detach his mind from the pain. Let it rip his body apart a million times for all he cared. His Shinso regeneration could handle it. After all, it only required energy which was provided richly not only by his own chakra reserves, but the Yuki in the Hake Fuin and the continuous supply of Riryoku from nature that his body was now always drawing upon. What he needed to do was submerge himself in the depths of his mind and put a lid on the pain, so he can focus on fixing the problem, or at the very least seal it away until he could fix it. After all, as much as he was confident that he had quite a bit of experience and knowledge in just about every field, either directly or due to the memories he had assimilated from Orochimaru, Kisame and Zetsu, he had to admit that he was in no condition to risk fixing the problem when he didn't even partially understand it. Slowly, oh so slowly, he called upon his lightning element manipulation before engulfing it in darkness element and shocking to hell his spine and nervous system as a whole. It was even more painful for a few moments, but afterwards everything momentarily faded to a dull ache. He took that opportunity to center himself and dived into his inner world, appearing in his mindscape, or what he assumed was his mindscape, at least. After all, as far as he remembered, and he was pretty sure whatever had happened to him had yet to alter his memories to any significant extent or at all. His mindscape was not supposed to be a rainbow-colored swirl in the process of being engulfed by a big ugly moon-sided gulri black concentric rings each bearing 3 tomo while the pupil was a black abyss to which everything seemed to be heading, including himself. Fuck. Naruto swore before golden chains erupted from his back, anchoring him to what was, probably, the ground, only to shatter into particles after a few moments. Naruto stared in shock at the sight. Those chakra chains were identical to the ones that Kushina had used to hold down Kyuubi while she was rampaging. To simply dismiss them like this. No, it's not physically possible. And this isn't a physical world. Naruto grunted before closing his eyes and calming himself. A few moments later, just as he began being sucked towards the eye at a faster pace, His eyes snapped open to reveal near copies of the one above, only with a pitch-black sclera bearing countless pinpricks of white light shining randomly. Now then, he spoke coldly, and the world froze as he established his will upon the mindscape. The eye seemed to turn to glare at him, slamming what would be considered an ungodly killing intent upon him as the suction appeared to increase in power hundredfold, to no effect whatsoever. I don't know who you are, I can only assume your identity. Naruto began as the colors began to settle into the landscape he had as his inner world, the castle bearing his memories taking form first, followed by the surrounding grassy plain, the forest, sea, and the other locations he had willed into existence. I don't care who you are right now. All that I care about is that you are invading my body, my mindscape. Do you actually believe mere pain will be enough to make me completely lose control, fool? Naruto growled as his eyes flashed and glowed angrily. This is my world, he roared to the heaves as millions upon millions of black stakes materialized around the eye before instantly darting at it, turning it into a pincushion, yet only receiving a minor feeling of discomfort, which changed as silver chains connected to each and every stake, earning a soundless howl of agony reverberating through the entire mindscape. Fall! Naruto roared as he willed the action, causing the moon-sided eye to begin its descent towards him. At the same time shrinking and shriveling up until it was the size of his fist as it landed before him, forming a relatively enormous crater, before darting at him, only to be repelled by a silvery barrier created by silver chains and then enveloped by countless other silvery chains, which then melded into a full silver shell of glowing exorcising power, which then began to shake wildly as soon as Naruto's focus slipped, only to stop as the blonde returned his intent to restraining it. Tisk. I guess I can't leave it be. Need to seal it. He mumbled in annoyance as he tried to think of a solution. His eyes darted around the mindscape, occasionally returning to the silver orb as he considered his options. Tisk. A simple object won't hold for long. Something more substantial would be required to contain it. He decided before releasing a dark chuckle. A Jinchuriki within a Jinchuriki. Huh. Why not? It's not like it would be the fist time. After all, while Negi and the others were separated from Kyuubi upon being sealed in me, they were within the Jubi. He paused and narrowed his eyes as the sphere began to emit a malicious red glow. When it was sealed within the Rikudo Sennin. With that in mind, he quickly created a cage bunshin and had it go to the castle, from where it returned with a few items. The fragment of the Great Grand Master Key retrieved from Nagato. A beach ball-sized stone of Gelel. 2 unraveled Hake Fuin seal formulas on separate scrolls as well as their respective keys and backups. A few dozen charka crystals. The backup key for the Hake Fuin imprinted upon his own body. And last, but far from least, a massive scroll containing an advanced seal Naruto had developed for the past few months. Fuinjutsu. Nanatsu Kusari Genso Fuin. To think I would be forced to use this so soon. Naruto scowled at the situation he was being put into. Clearing his head, he quickly formed a few cage bunshin and made the few but critical arrangements necessary for what he had in mind. First, chain it down to the first vessel, Naruto muttered as silvery chains connected the silver sphere glowing malevolently red and the Gelel stone. Then reinforce and actualize the concept of imprisonment. The sphere and the chains were engulfed by a massive amount of chakra, crystallizing them to a solid form and diminishing the red glow to almost nothing. Smirking in satisfaction, Naruto placed the Gelel stone on the first Hake Fuin scroll. Seal. He called out, and a moment later the silvery orb was drawn within the Gelel stone it was connected to through the solid silver chains, leaving only 8 silver links half submerged in the bluish-green surface in an octagon shape. That done, he quickly connected the 8 links to new silvery chains with the Great Grand Master Key fragment before crystallizing these as well and repeating the sealing with the second Hake Fuin scroll, before destroying the primary keys and backups of the seals he had made. Now for the hard part, Naruto muttered as he took the chakra crystals and began using his will to turn them into concepts and implanting them in the Nanatsu Kusari Genso Fuin scroll in a certain pattern. With that achieved, he hurried with the large scroll and the Great Grand Master Key fragment to the one place in his mindscape he did not want to be at currently, but unfortunately needed to. The mental manifestation of the seal that had until a few months ago held Kyuubi. The enormous golden cage held shut by a sheet of paper bearing the kanji for seal, and the lock beneath it. Removing the paper would have normally doubled the Yuki flow through his chakra network, while still holding the seal in place. While usually dangerous for Jinchuriki, for him it would have been an annoyance at best even without his friendship to Kyuubi from a young age allowing her to regulate the flow to avoid hurting him. As in Uzumaki, his natural reserves would have diluted the Yuki to almost nothing while any damage would have healed shortly. Now though, the mass of Yuki was resonating with the eye even as it was behind two high-level seals, filling the contents of the cage with malice, hatred and madness. In other words, exactly what he did not want to experience at the moment, considering what waited for him in the physical world. He had not illusions that there would be no aftereffects on his body from this incident. But, as much as he wanted to avoid it, he had no choice. There was a limit to how many complex seals a single human body may hold, and he was already at the limit. That was one of the reasons why he had to combine the temporal relocation spell as well as environmental Riryoku absorption array with the Magia Arabia spell pattern rather than go with the safer and less complex route of adding them separately. This is gonna suck, Naruto said deadpanned as he reached out and began removing the paper seal, only for someone to grasp his wrist as soon as he had peeled it off even slightly. Shinra Tensai. Naruto's eyes flashed and everything within a meter radius around him was blasted away by a wave of gravity. Turning around, he was 1 part surprised, 9 parts disgusted and 90 parts enraged by the sight of an older blonde man bearing a striking resemblance to himself. Yondaime Hokage, Minato Namikaze. He spoke coldly. Now, is that how you greet your father? Minato began with a smile. I believe, sperm donor, is a more fitting description of the part you played in my life. You never got around doing the father part. You were too busy sacrificing me in order to give Konoha a malleable weapon. Antarctica itself would have shivered from the coldness in Naruto's voice. Now son, Minato began, proving that he was either deaf and imbecile, did not care what had just been said, or any combination of the three. I know you're a bit upset. A bit? Naruto's eye twitcandor that losing his temper would endanger not only his but the lives of his loved ones stopped him from going Kyuubi on the former Hokage's ass. But I did what I had to do. Konoha was far too weakened from the Kyuubi no Yoko's rampage. It needed a trump card. And as much as it hurt me, my life was a necessary sacrifice to make sure the amount of power you had was enough for Konoha to suppress at need, Minato declared firmly. Truly, he was an idiot. I don't remember volunteering to be Konoha's weapon minutes after I was born, Namikaze. Naruto hissed. And most certainly not its Jinchuriki. While things turned out alright with Kyuubi, had she taken offense to having a chunk of her power ripped away, things would have turned ugly fast. Yes, I've seen of your relationship with it, Minato said with a frown. You shouldn't have let her out, she might hurt Konoha's citizens. But this gives you the opportunity to create another Jinchuriki. Not only it, but the other Biju you have gathered as well. Think about it. If you plan it right, you could create hundreds of pseudo-Jinchuriki. An entire battalion of Konoha ninja wielding the power of the Biju. None of the other shinobi nations would dare challenge Konoha, he said enthusiastically. I have a better idea. Naruto smiled. How about you go fuck yourself while I fix this mess and then go celebrate by ripping apart a few Konoha civilians. Like I thought, that thing has corrupted you too much. Minato frowned, a cold look settling in his eyes. If you refuse to serve Konoha with everything you have, then you are a threat to the village. I'm sorry, but I have to eliminate you. With your death, most of that dangerous clan of yours as well as the Kyuubi will die as well, and Konoha will still be left with the Nibi and Yanbi Jinchuriki, as well as the Ichibi, Nibi, Sanbi and Yanbi, which can be sealed once more. A moment later, he had appeared on Naruto's side with a 3-bladed kunai poised to strike at the Jinchuriki's neck, only to barely dodge when a long blade erupted from Naruto's shoulder aimed at his heart. Foolish worm. You dare challenge me in my own realm? Naruto hissed in anger. This is my world, Namikaze. Here, I am God. He declared, and without further ado he faded from view as several Narutos appeared around and above Minato, each emitting a dark red NC's sequence from both hands, the blades of pure energy impaling Minato like a pincushion as he hesitated. Still, his wounds did not kill him instantly, allowing him to collapse in a pool of blood as they dispelled. How? He choked on his blood. How did I prevented you from using the Hiraishin? Naruto smirked. Fool, Have you heard nothing of what I said? I am God here. If I will you to be completely powerless, then powerless you are. GRK. The former cage coughed more blood. Now be good little shitstain and shut up. I have better things right now to do than play with trash like you, Naruto said as he turned to the matter at hand and ripped off the paper seal, revealing a spiral-shaped lock. Without another word he pressed his palm on the lock as a seal script appeared on his right arm from palm to shoulder. Not bothering to physically twist it, he willed the lock to unravel and moments later the golden gates slammed open before breaking apart into particles of light which upon a mental command from Naruto remained floating in the air. Darkness, malice, anger, hate, fear, desperation, loneliness, malevolence. All of them and more washed over him as an ocean of red yuki flooded his surroundings, momentarily making him lose his composure. Are these Kyuubi-chan's feelings? Naruto wondered before getting a better grasp of the energy. No. This power is no longer hers. It no longer reflects her. It has been colored by my psyche and mine alone for months, years actually with the help of the diorama spheres. These are my emotions, my inner darkness, he smiled grimly. Well, I never denied that I'm a twisted person. I guess at least hypocrisy won't be on my list of defects. With that conclusion he willed the power to stop and converge, to compress a distance from him, only he did not expect a shadow to suddenly envelop the mass of Yuki and compress it even further. Into a dark humanoid form, a black mist-like aura enveloping its full form. We finally meet, hey? It spoke in a demonic voice. Who? Naruto took a step back in shock, quickly glancing back at the still barely alive Minato Namikaze after catching sight of sunny blonde hair on the figure's head. Me? Why, I'm you, of course. The real you? The figure cackled psychotically. The real me? Naruto grunted as several pieces of information came to the forefront of his mind. Tisk, my darker half, you mean? I guess the encroachment has already advanced to this stage. Though it's not complete considering you're not a mindless animal. I think I'll call you Yin. So be it, Yang. The figure allowed, a brief flash of its cheek revealing the three whisker-like marks that Naruto had once had, only thicker, darker, more animalistic. Well, I would love to stay and chat, but I have bigger things to worry about, Naruto began. No, you don't, and we both know it. Naruto could practically feel the smirk in Yin's voice. After all, you know you cannot defeat me. Before it could finish the sentence it had to dodge the great Grand Master key fragment that had been tossed at it. Are you crazy, you? Yin began in slight shock only for the bloodied form of Minato Namikaze to slam into it. Wah. A moment later the crystal walls that had once held the Ala Alba converged around the figure and forced it to become part of it. I don't need to beat you right now, I just have to get you out of the way. Naruto growled as the large scroll containing the sealing script of his design unrolled and wrapped around what was now a huge floating crystal orb containing the still unclear Yin, Minato Namikaze and the fragment of the Great Grand Master Key. No, it contained several fragments, some of which should not have even been in his mindscape but were nonetheless, and under his shocked eyes they merged into a rather big piece of the greatest of the keys before he snapped out of it and finished the job. Nanatsu Kusari Genso Fuin. He declared, seal. He called out as 6 crystalline energy chains, of fire, water, wind, earth, light and shadow wrapped around the orb while the 7th, of darkness, connected the orb to his chest forming a pitch-black spiral both there and on the orb before power and darkness coursed from inside the orb, from Yin, into Naruto, causing him roar in agony as his body overloaded with power. He barely willed the Hake Fuin to close once more taking the form of Torii gates around the orb before another layer as a red wooden cage which locked like before, and then swore as the spell pattern of the Magia Arabia went in overdrive and the encroachment enveloped him. Making his decision, he left the mindscape and barely managed to utter the appropriate instructions to Karen before his world became agony, which lasted for days, until his stabilization ritual was performed and he was reborn as a demon. Flashback end his inner musings were instantly dismissed as soon as a group of 4 ninja, with apparently rather twisted chakras at that, entered his sensory range. Karen. Naruto spoke up cutting off Taruho as he was explaining the preparations the village guards were making. Kagura Shingen. Karen spoke as she closed her eyes for further focus. 4 of them, Shunin to Junin level, 3 male and 1 female. All four have mid-Chunin chakra levels of their own, but they seem to have worms. No, snakes of sorts in their bodies that act as additional chakra reserves, as well as granting them elemental affinities that they may not naturally have. One of the males has a huge amount of snakes in him, but does not appear to be drawing on the chakra, unlike the others. Even if it's distorted, his chakra seems like that of a medic nin, so he's probably providing the other there. With the snakes, Ori have if necessary. The female has a very strong Kaden affinity currently, while the males have Futon and Doden. She gave the brief report on the enemy nin. What? The priestess began in shock and confusion. Unyouthful enemies have arrived. Lee pumped his fist, looking fired up and ready to fight. Settle down, Lee, we're not fighting them here, Naruto ordered in a laid-back manner. What do you mean? Taruho demanded before bowing as Naruto's gaze moved to him, his icy blue right eye looking at him questionably while his useless but highly creepy dark left one remained motionless. I mean no disrespect, but are you not here to protect Shiin-sama? We are. But I suppose you wouldn't mind if most of the village survives as well, do you? Naruto commented. I do not understand. Taruho looked at him uncomfortably. Those guys have a lot of power. We could kill them no problem, but if we fight here most of the village will be wrecked, Karen said. They're already assaulting the gates, and went past. Hinata commented. 9 injured and 3 dead. They pretty much ran past the guards. Wait, Denheim-sama must flee. Taruho got up and hurried towards Shiin, who was staring at Naruto with a frown. Come, Shiin-sama, we must get you. Don't even think about it, Naruto said casually. There's no safer place for her right now than under our watch. But, the servant began flustered, but the young priestess interrupted. If you're not going to fight here, nor flee, what will you do? Shiin inquired puzzled. Ask them to leave. Naruto smiled. Hinata and Karen looked away to hide their amused smirks while Lee mentally translated Naruto's words into what he really meant to say and winced slightly. Absurd! Taruho exclaimed. You want to reason with? I can be very persuasive. Naruto smiled pleasantly as she pointed his open right hand at a 60 degrees angle towards the end of the room directly opposite from where their charge was sitting. Which one is the medic nin? The one in the back. Hinata informed him, not even bothering to turn to look as her Gokei Byakugan was active. Tisk. I guess it's never that easy, huh? Naruto asked rhetorically as his Rinnegan flared to life. Oh well. Shinra Tensei, he called out. Just as wicked cackle was heard from the Exad direction his palm was facing, and a moment later everything in that direction was blasted away. WWHWA. Shiin was gaping at the now missing 36% of the room, seeing the evening sky clearly through the hole in the roof. I think I got them, Naruto commented blandly as he lowered his hand, his right eye once again blue. They haven't landed yet. They'll probably land around 1.5 miles away. Give it a few dozen feet. Hinata informed him before sipping from the tea they had been served. They won't come back for a while. It will take some time for that damage to heal, even if he's on Tsunade's level. Karen added. What was that? Shiin demanded, losing her patience. That's what he calls persuasion. Lee hung his head, disappointed at the lack of action. How unyouthful. There's no better kill than overkill. Naruto chuckled. Still, while didn't kill them, they won't be after us for a while yet. More than enough time to put some distance between them and Shiin. I see. I will hurry and assemble the escort. Taruho quickly got up from where he had fallen on his ass in shock. Yeah, hurry. Naruto nodded while telling Karen otherwise. As soon as Taruho had ran past the group, he dropped flat with a senbon sticking out of his ass. What have you done to him? Shiin demanded angrily as she quickly got on her feet. Do you really want him tagging around, slowing us down further? Naruto inquired. Well, no, but he's just asleep for a couple days, nothing more. Karen rolled her eyes as she retrieved her poisoned senbon. I see, let's go then, the blonde priestess decided. I like her, she seems to be thinking straight. Naruto smiled before adding, besides that, you're gonna die pierced through your chest part, of course. Yeah, silly girl. Hinata chuckled. It'll take more than that to kill Naruto-kun. Huh? Shiin was looking between them, not sure whether to feel complimented, angry or disorientated. Don't mind them. Even in Konoha their clan is rather odd, Lee told Shion. The poor girl was less than appeased considering who was attempting to sell her worries. Well, let's go. Naruto decided and swooped Shion off her feet, carrying her bridal style. Hey. What do you think you're doing? Shion demanded. You didn't expect to walk to the shrine where Moryo's body is, do you? Karen asked incredulously. That would take, like, weeks. As much as we would like to walk around and have fun, we have a little thing like the end of the world to worry about right now. Maybe on the way back. Hinata told her. Until then, one of us will carry you, Haim-sama. Lee declared with fire in his eyes as he considered the journey. And unless you want to be squished on my back, I'll be carrying you this way unless we get in a fight. Naruto finished. Fine. Just keep your hand to yourself. Shion looked away with a huff and a slight blush from the proximity. Shion-san, as pretty as you are, I'm married, Naruto began. I didn't mean to imply. Shion hurried to explain her words. To over a dozen women. That ended any attempt of Shion's to excuse a possible affront to his morals. I won't endanger a mission just to cope a feel from you or get laid. I get enough of that at home already. What about that time with Koyuki Haim in the Land of Snow a year ago? Karen gave him a smirk. I had to be in an Icha movie with her. What would you have expected? That was pretty much my mission. Naruto rolled his eyes. We're not upset. Hinata assured him. I know. The invitation you gave her when you thought I wasn't looking said that and more. Naruto deadpanned. So youthful. Lee was crying tears of joy in his forearm at his friend's fortune. You were Mishi? Shion in a small voice. That brought her under the curious gazes of the entire team. So much for the innocence of shrine maidens. Naruto smirked as Shion blushed, her eyes bright in horror as she realized she had spoken out loud. Don't worry, confidentiality is part of the mission. We won't spread the word across the elemental countries or anything. That don't mean we won't tease you a bit. Karen's smile was far too wide for Shion's comfort. So, do you enjoy watching my husband naked? Wait, you're... Shion looked at her in shock. I as well. Hinata's smile was just as wide. Time to go. Naruto said loudly. Grab on. Wah. Shion began only to squeak as their group sank into shadows only to appear somewhere in the wilderness. Teleportation. I've never been to the ceiling shrine so I can't take us there directly. Naruto explained. Hinata, take point. I'll be behind you. Lee next and Karen last. Move out. Without a complaint, the team moved out according to their leader's instructions, and after a few hours of monotonous and mostly silent run, Shion had to admit that while it was nowhere near as comfortable as the carriages she usually moved about in when outside her village, it was still much better than being carried as a backpack on one of their backs. Still, by the time it was just past midnight, she could not hold back her complaints much regarding her comfort and, more importantly, hunger. She was rather surprised when Naruto seemed to pull a rich warm meal for them all out of nowhere, but her potential comments were permanently delayed as they all dug in, the three kinds of sensory techniques in use making sure they could relax for a short while. The decision to camp there for the night was only a formality afterwards, with Lee taking first watch followed by Hinata, Karen and Naruto. The night was quiet, no disturbances, with the single exception of Shion waking rather abruptly soon after Naruto's shift had started. It did not take her long to wander off in his direction, finding him watching the pre-dawn sky at the edge of Ing. Shion. Naruto greeted her, without bothering to turn towards her. You are addressing me with far too much familiarity, the light blonde priestess remarked a bit coldly. Yeah, well, apparently I'm going to die soon, so any complaints you'll make won't affect me. Naruto smirked. You still do not believe me, do you? Shion sighed in annoyance as she took a seat next to him on a boulder. I've made hundreds of predictions regarding people's deaths, and all of them, every last one, came true. Sigh, look, this is getting on my nerves, so let's make things a bit clear. Naruto muttered. Do you see my funeral, or people carrying my corpse? No, my visions don't work like that. Shion shook her head. I only see how one dies, a few seconds before and a few after. And you say me pierced through the chest by, what exactly? Naruto raised an eyebrow. I don't know for sure what it is, Shion said with a bit of embarrassment. It looks like a dark purple tentacle of sorts. I see. Naruto must and then nodded to himself after a few seconds of though before pulling out a kunai, startling Shion. What are you doing? She demanded only for her eyes to widen in shock and horror as the blonde teenager next to her ran through his left hand with the kunai in his right. Are you out of your mind? She shrieked. Be silent and watch. Naruto said firmly as he pulled out the kunai and her the hand with a hole big enough to see the other side for her to see clearly. Under the priestess's shocked gaze the wound quickly closed up, leaving behind unblemished skin, which was just as clean as before once Naruto created a bit of water to wash off the blood. How? Shion asked in shock. I'm demon, Naruto shrugged. Shion stared. I'm serious. I was born human, but I soon became the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi no Yoko and due to other influences and circumstances I became a demon as well a few years ago. Naruto explained. You don't look like a demon to me? Shion asked unsurely. I'm not that kind of demon. Demons come in all shapes and sizes. Since I was human to start with and had a lot of power, I was able to manipulate my transformation so that I remained pretty much the same, only, well, superior to humans. Naruto shrugged. Demons are not superior to humans. Shion snapped at him. Not all of them, true, and it depends on what they're superior in. Naruto amended. So you had no choice then become a demon? Shion asked after a while. Well, it was not something planned, but I was aiming to achieve similar results, what with gaining several abilities of demonic origin. Naruto must. I don't regret it, nor do I dislike my current form. To be honest, it's less about being a demon and more about not being human that I particularly enjoy. What do you mean? Shion inquired. Do you know how most Jinchuriki are treated? Naruto inquired, only to receive a shake of the head. Most Biju only got sealed in humans after bloody battles, where countless ninja got killed. Whether it was a battle to capture the Biju or if the Biju escaped its former host. How do you think the people containing them are treated, when thousands hate the Biju because they lost friends and family to them? Hate? Shion inquired after some consideration. And then some. Naruto looked in the distance with a grim look. I can't speak for all the Jinchuriki ever, but most of those I know, myself included, were treated as lower than thrash, hated, rejected, with countless attempts at out lives. After all the suffering I went though because they didn't consider me human enough, can you really blame me for no longer wanting to even share the same race as them? So, you hair all humans? Shion asked softly, having quite a few unpleasant flashbacks of her own childhood, of her own loneliness and the rejection she suffered. No, I simply don't give a damn about humans in general. If it's someone I know is a decent person, friend of mine or not, I'm willing to lend a hand if need be. But for some ass who considers himself superior to others just because of who his parents were, or because he has some special ability he did not earn, well, the world is better off without them. Naruto's eyes were narrowed. So you hate me then, being born to be the priestess of demon country, and Shion trailed off. Did you have a choice in the matter? Naruto raised an eyebrow at her. Not really, Shion said with a shrug. I mean, I was really happy when my mother was alive, but after that, she sighed. It started off small, not having as much freedom to move around. Then they limited what I was allowed to learn. What do you mean? Naruto looked at her with a frown. Oh, I can perform the Yashara no Fuin without issues, don't worry about that. Shion waved him off, mistaking his concern. In fact, that's the only technique I was allowed to learn. Odd, Naruto must. Tell me, what do you know about this Moryo? Besides him being a demon and his sealing, I mean. Not much, I'm afraid. I was not allowed to look into it, but I remember something about the darkness of the human heart being mentioned when referring to him. Shion thought carefully. Not really surprising then, Naruto commented. What do you mean? Shion looked at him questionably. My transformation into a demon involved the darkness inside me as well. It was based on it, actually. Naruto revealed. I had to take measures to ensure I don't become some mindless monster when I change. I guess Moryo wasn't as lucky. Shion looked at him cautiously. Relax, everyone has darkness in their hearts. Naruto rolled his eyes. That doesn't mean there isn't light as well, he said as he conjured a sphere of light in his palm. If you want to remember something, remember this. Nothing is pure in this world. There is no absolute good and evil, no black and white. There are only shades of gray. Some darker and some lighter. What about you? Shion inquired. Right at the middle. I don't care much for either side. They have no hold over me. I do what I want, and whether people call it good or evil matters little to me. Naruto shrugged. In a world like ours, morality is quite subjective. If you say so, Shion said unsurely. I mean, what's the point of being alive if I'm not actually living, you know? Naruto sighed as he got up. Come on, I'll prepare breakfast for you before the others wake up. The next couple of days were rather monotonous, what with them traveling most of the time, but eventually that came crashing down when they were running along a river and a humongous water dragon rose to attack them. Hinata, freeze it, Naruto ordered with narrowed eyes. Crystallitatio telustris. The pale-eyed girl called out moments after her Pactio rings had appeared on her hands, causing the dragon to freeze solid with countless spikes erupting from it before it crashed down into the river. Permission to deal with her? Granted. Lee, back her up. Hinata, try to obtain some information. We don't need her alive. Naruto said quickly and the two were off. Hinata moved so fast her form was blurred, with Lee right behind her. Before the orange-haired water user could realize what was going on, she had been blasted away from her bulky white-haired companion by a Hake Kusho, and a couple seconds later she was being splashed all over the tree she had impacted, as her body became water. Hinata, who had landed in front of the spot, quickly looked away with a frown, searching for the real body, and barely managed to dodge a high-pressure water blade that cut down a few dozen trees. You bitch! That hurt! The orange-haired girl screamed as the water gathered into a solid form once more. A Hizuka? Hinata asked in surprise. Don't compare me to those fools. This is the power my lord granted me. The orange-haired girl said proudly as a huge orb of water gathered above her. Behold. Too slow. Hinata said quietly as she appeared behind the orange-haired girl, grabbing her head as her eyes turned into the purplish-gray with black concentric circles. Shout another word. She grasped her opponent's soul and ripped it out before closing her eyes as she assimilated the near 2 decades of knowledge. I still haven't gotten the hang of it. And the cause was not only due to her lack of talent in mind and soul jutsu, which was still not her worst field, but also due to how inexperienced she was with the jutsu used and the Rinnegan as a whole. After Naruto had gained the Rinnegan, they discovered that even after transplanting it through blood like with the other bloodlines the Fuin had amassed, not everyone could use it, at least at first. After Naruto and the other Fuin Jinchuriki and the Biju, the 3 other Magia Arabia users, Negi, Shao and Evangeline, had awakened it along with the 3 girls of Uzumaki descent, Kushina, Karen and Tayuya. The former Senju and Uchiha, Tsunade and Mikoto respectively, followed a few months after. It was almost a year and a half later that Hinata, a former Hyuga, awakened it as well, and the others followed a year later. The theory they had decided that was the most correct was that the Rinnegan had awakened in those who had been most compatible first and then awakened later as it adapted fully to the genetic code of the others. Naruto, the Jinchuriki and the Biju gaining it off the bat was due to the obvious reason that the Rakudo Sennin gained her due to her tenant's influence, and the current Jinchuriki and Biju already had the genetic and energy background, only requiring a final push. Those of Uzumaki descent also had the right genes, and due to Naruto's connection to them they gained the right energy imprint soon enough that they awakened it as well. The Magia Arabia users were in the opposite corner, having the right energy and incomplete genes, but it was settled just as well. The former Senju and Uchiha were in similar positions as the Uzumaki, only with a less compatible genetic code which took some time to fully adapt, and the same for the former Hyuga heiress, only a longer time due to the Byakugan being further down the evolutionary line than the Sharingan. The other Fuin took longer to awaken it to their incubation period, being longer, but in the end all members of the Fuin clan possessed the legendary Rinnegan, though only Naruto was able to combine it with the other dojutsu. Shaking her head out of memories, Hinata hurried after the currently fleeing Naruto and Karen, the priestess now being in Karen's arms, before deciding it was a better idea to go help Lee as she noticed Naruto's Rinnegan activating. Her intuition was proved correct as not only did the forest behind the fleeing blonde explode, but the taijutsu specialist was in no condition to move on his own, both due to injuries and being drunk, the later reason prompting Hinata to sneak behind him and knock him out as soon as she confirmed that his opponent was indeed dead. She did not want to deal with a drunken fist Lee. Moryo taking over the world seemed preferable in comparison. 10 minutes later she had caught up with Naruto and Karen, who was still carrying Shion, at which point Naruto took over carrying Lee, allowing her to take point. By nightfall, the group had once again stopped to rest a bit, only this time it was only for a short while as the enemy was still on their trail. So, those snakes providing them with chakra originally came from Moryo's human host. Naruto must at the information Hinata had obtained from her opponent. And like we suspected, those things really are capable of enhancing or granting elemental chakra. They seem to be a lot like the unyouthful curse seals I heard of Orochimaru of the Sannin making. Lee provided. My opponent transform his body, growing extra heads and limbs. No to mention rock armor. Not really surprising. Naruto must. The curse seals draw on natural energy and use the bit of Yuki in it to trigger the transformation via the special enzyme. These snakes seem similar. So, what should we do? Karen inquired. We're getting close to the shrine of sealing. It would be best to get rid of our pursuers before we get there, else they may disrupt the sealing ritual. Alright, here's the plan. Naruto nodded to himself after a moment of thought. I'll take Shion straight to the shrine to avoid delays while you three get rid of our remaining pursuers. Hinata, I want you to deal with the medic Nin, but try to not damage his body too much. I want to take a look at those chakra snakes if possible. The other one might as well be turned to paste for all I care. After that, I want you to follow after me and keep guard around the shrine to ensure the enemy won't get in and interrupt. Hinata, you're in charge. Any questions? Seeing no complaints, he got up and picked up Shion from where she had been eavesdropping. Good. Move out, he ordered as he dashed away at a fast pace, but slow enough to not cause Shion any great discomfort. By the time he had arrived in the vicinity of the shrine, his sensory abilities had already told him that he was a bit late. What's the hold up? Shion demanded anxiously. See those lumps of dirt all over the place? Naruto asked. Yes, Shion looked at him questionably. Those are some of Moryo's moving stone soldiers hidden underneath. Naruto told her. If we just walk through we'll get squashed. Weren't you bragging about? Shion began. I wasn't bragging. Naruto cut her off. I can take care of them all on my own. But now I'm not on my own. I need to make sure you not only get past unharmed, but also perform the sealing ritual. So I'm in the way? Shion scowled. Sorta. Though personally I'm blaming the idiots in your village. I can sense you have a lot of chakra, as well as quite a bit of spiritual energy, Riryoku. Naruto told her. Had they given you even a bit of combat training, you could have mowed through those soldiers on your own. After all, you can have all the power in the world if you can't use it. Thanks. Shion muttered. So, what now? Well, if we can't walk through them we'll just have to jump over. Naruto shrugged. What? The pale blonde priestess looked at him as if her grew another head. I have a technique that allows me to jump over long distances. Naruto explained as he gently placed her on her own feet. I need you on my back so I can make sure I can protect us if they throw something at us. All right. Shion nodded and a few seconds later her hands were wrapped around his neck and her legs around his waist. Okay. Let's go. Naruto smirked and without another word disappeared with a shundo appearing in mid-air a few dozen feet away before creating a platform of ki and pushing off performing a koku shundo several times bypassing a good number of the now emerging stone soldiers. However, just as he was performing another koku shundo from beyond the edge of a cliff overlooking a river his blood run cold as he felt Shion letting go of him before he had completely moved. As soon as he arrived at his new location in the air he looked back in horror at the sight of Shion plummeting towards the shallow water beneath. Without a second of hesitation he used the koku shundo to appear just beneath her and grabbed her tightly just in time to break her fall. Less than a minute later a soaked Shion is gently being placed against a tree by an equally wet Naruto whose back was dripping with blood. Well, I suppose a short break is in order, he said quietly as he removed his black trench coat as well as his black shirt causing Shion to stare at him with a blush for a few moments before her look turned to one of horror and guilt at the sight of blood dripping off his clothes. Mind giving me a hand with something? Anything. Shion said quickly. I'm sorry, I didn't mean for you to get hurt. It's all right. I forgive you as long as you tell me why you thought killing yourself is a good idea, and help remove the rocks still embedded in my back. Naruto sighed. Okay. Shien said quietly, and after flinch at his severely wounded back she began to remove the shards of stone. So, Naruto-dima, then I won't make any more predictions, and those I made won't come true, Shien admitted. Didn't we establish that a mere stab through the chest won't kill me? Naruto groaned. All the visions I ever received were of people dying. All of them. I don't know what those tentacles are made of. Acid, poison, I don't know, but it will kill you if it happens, Shien snapped. You're not the only person who had visions of death, Naruto finally said after a while, during which Shien pulled out all the stone shards. She looked at him in surprise. I've already seen the moment of my death, Naruto admitted. I can't say whether it's really going to happen, or when, considering I can change my age at will, but it won't be by being stabbed by a tentacle. But even so, like all prophecies, it's only a potential future, not the future. If the conditions for it are fulfilled, it will happen. If not, it's merely an image of another potential timeline. Nothing more. Alternate timeline? Shien inquired as she watched Naruto go back in the water to wash off the blood. I'm talking about parallel worlds, Naruto explained. Space and time don't exist in a straight line. Rather, it's like a tree, branching off with each possibility. What if one was born looking more like his mother than his father? What if the Shodem Hokage never built Konoha? What if your mother never sealed away Moryo? What if? I think I understand. Shien must. However, if there is one thing certain that I know, it's that my future is something only I can decide. My life and death will be according to my terms. That is absolute, Naruto said firmly, and Shien could only look on in awe at the aura of power he was emanating. And what I decided is that I will survive this without you dying in my place. After a few more minutes of rest, Naruto gave her the new plan. Since the stone soldiers are awake, I will have to distract them while you perform the sealing, Naruto told her. I will get to the entrance, and then you're on your own for a little while. Think you can last that long without trying to kill yourself? I think I can manage. She blushed in embarrassment at the reminder of her blunder. With Shien once more on his back, it only took a few koku shundo to reach the entrance of the cave. Before Shien had even fully gotten off his back, he was already unleashing his first spell, Ignis Tempestas Obscurans. He called out, and from his joined hands erupted a twister of fire and darkness, carving a half a dozen meter wide lane through the army of stone soldiers. Go. He urged her as he began forming a Rasengan in one hand. Good luck. Shien called out over her shoulder as she dashed inside and away from the bell-like screech origination from the sunny blonde. Futon. Rasen Shuriken, Naruto called out as he tossed the large greenish-white orb encased in a white disc of 4 spinning blades of wind, taking out few dozen soldiers. Tisk, there's no end to them. He growled as he noticed that more and more stone soldiers were approaching. Let's try a wide area attack them, he decided, and after a quick mental chant he called out, Lysismenos Gi. From the enormous magic circle that appeared from his fist, a humongous torrent of lava erupted, washing over the entire R, swallowing up hundreds of the stone soldiers before Naruto's other fist was raised. A magic circle of equal size but different design and color appeared as he called out the appropriate incantation. Atlas Barros were the words uttered just before a 100-meter-wide magic circle appeared above the reinforcements before they were crushed in an enormous crater under the extremely powerful gravity forced on them. Leaving a few Kage Bunshin with decent enough chakra reserves to hold out a while, Naruto dashed inside, and as soon as he caught sight of Shien on her knees with tears leaking from her eyes, he felt as if the floor had dropped from under him, which was exactly what happened to the stone floor Shien was on. Throwing her in the darkness below just as dozens, maybe even hundreds of dark purple tentacles shrouded in darkness erupted from all over the place, several taking the appearance of dragon heads with glowing crimson eyes. Fuck. Naruto summed things up as he jumped away from tentacles aimed to impale him and began hacking away at them with a pure white NC's sequence from each hand. Soon enough his Kage Bunshin were all over the place doing the same, and he was just about to blast away with a Shinra Tensei, a few tentacles about to skewer him, when they were disintegrated by a wave of light, originating from a very familiar safety bell embedded in his collar. When did Naruto began to mutter when he felt the previously powerful, if suppressed energy signature belonging to Shien begin to weaken as her power was being washed over the depths she had fallen in. Shion, you idiot! He cursed as he blasted away all the tentacles in a 20-meter radius before glowing silver chains erupted from his arms and were thrust into the hole Shion had fallen in, wrapped around the first solid thing that did not flinch away as if burned and pulled back towards him, making a disheveled Shion hit Naruto's chest. Breathe, Naruto ordered, the power he was giving off alone keeping away further attacks as he remained levitating in the air. As Shion drew a deep breath he continued. Do you really want to die that badly? Do you want it all to end, just like that? What did you accomplish in your life? Are you ready to let it all go just like that? He demanded as both his eyes turned golden with black sclera with colored specks of light, the iris bearing 3 black circles with 3 black tomo. If you want to achieve something, you have to take the fist step. Shion, tell me, do you want to live? Yes. I want to live, she yelled back in tears. Then this thing needs to die. Naruto stated the obvious as he glared down at the emerging form of Moryo. A pinkish-white light began to shine from the safety bell drawing Naruto's attention. Well, this thing seems to have caused enough trouble as well. He decided as he took it in his hand, channel as much chakra you can in it. I'll take care of the rest, he told Shion who placed both hands above the bell which was soon enveloped in a large orb of light. Good enough. Naruto deemed as Shion removed her hands and he held it above himself he began adding his own power into the mix, making the orb almost 5 meters in diameter as it illuminated the entire cave with its pinkish-white glow. Shinsei Senpo. Koton. Rasenjo Akatsuki, he called out as he threw the orb of light at Moryo's core before using the Hiraishin marker he had left outside. Where he had saved Shion from the fall to escape, just as the entire mountain exploded, smoke, lava, stone and ash filling the air as the landscape changed. As he watched the sight from a distance from Shion's side, he didn't know whether to smirk or wince at the damage. He was about to ask Shion if she was all right when he noticed how tightly she was holding his arm, and the look in her eyes as she gazed at him, and that blush. This seems oddly familiar. He inwardly gulped. Rescuing the Godem K's cage. Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze Fuin. A person that was entirely not amused by his current situation. Having grown up in such a way that only through great awareness of his surroundings could his health be assured, the blonde had picked up at the very least a few tidbits of advice on pretty much every subject when it came to social norms. Sure, beyond what he could use to his favor he pretty much ignored it all, but there are a few things that he had found important if one wanted to have a stable social life. Such as advice concerning women. He had learned enough to be considered a veritable Don Juan when he felt it necessary. He had learned how to stay on the good side of the women in his life. No matter what relationship he had with them, he had learned all the tricks in the book when it came to appeasing them in the eventual inevitable event of him screwing you. He was utterly confused by what was going on. Where's the jealousy? The desire to keep their man to themselves? The suspicion to outsiders? Naruto wondered as he watched Shion cheerfully chatting up his other fiancés. In a chain of events that mostly went over his head, Shion had ended up in the care of his clan in order for her to learn how to be a proper priestess from Kanoka as well as learning Fuinjutsu from himself and Kushina who were the current experts in the subject. Of course, that was only the young priestess' excuse in order to get out of demon country and away from the guards and servants who were overprotective to the point of suffocation. To put it simply, the pale blonde girl had had it with being treated like a delicate vase, kept on display and not allowed to do anything. As forgiving as she was of her mother's plot to keep her safe with the power of the mystic safety bell, she was absolutely furious by the fact that she was treated her entire life as a flight risk, not allowed to learn anything that could be even remotely dangerous were she to turn against her people by merging with Moryo. It was something Naruto could fully sympathize with, as he was set up pretty much the same concerning his ninja life, and would have probably ended up as some dunce were it not for Kyuubi's interference and continuous motivation. Truth be told, had he not formed the Fuin clan and thus become responsible for the happiness and well-being of all its members, he would have probably made himself scarce from Konoha years ago, most likely taking advantage of the distraction provided by the Auto invasion. Will of fire be damned. Alas, even with his sympathy for Shion's situation, he still could not understand how his lovers, fiancés, brides-to-be, could be so accepting of more and more potential fiancés for him, and he could not begin to understand why they were encouraging it. Therefore he was relieved when he was distracted from such matters by a summons from Tsunade, requesting his immediate presence at the Hokage Tower. His relief was short-lived. What do you mean Gaara was kidnapped by the Akatsuki? Naruto demanded in shock. He's the cage, damn it, what did the Akatsuki do? Drop by Sunagakure and simply take him? That pretty much sums things up. Tsunade admitted as she glanced at the decoded message. What the hell were the Suna Nin doing? Tayuya demanded perplexed. Sit around like at the fucking movies. From the little this message says, the only people injured or killed were sentries, so we can assume only Gaara actually engaged the enemy. Tsunade shrugged. I take it we're the aid you'll be sending? Kakashi inquired as he motioned at himself, Naruto, Tayuya, Karen and Kufei. Yes, I want you to head to Suna pronto and then help track down Gaara. Tsunade nodded. Your standing orders are to recover the cage and eliminate his kidnappers as well as any Akatsuki members you encounter. Capture them if it appears the chances of success seem high enough, but otherwise I want their heads and rings. It's been years since we've gotten any insightful information on them though. Not that I don't have confidence in this team, because I do, really, but I have some doubts if we are to face more than 4 Akatsuki members. As good as the 5 of us are, the Akatsuki ARES rank missing Nin, Kakashi pointed out. Tamari left earlier this morning for a diplomatic mission towards Suna, so you will be meeting up with her. Tsunade informed them. Also, Suna will no doubt want to have their own representatives in the rescue team. That does not really boost my confidence, Kakashi muttered, since the search for the Sandame cage after his disappearance, Suna has been rather hesitant in parting with troops while their cage is away. Be that as it may, we can't afford to send too many of our ninja either. Tsunade frowned. Otto has been acting up again lately, and this would be a prime time to start a major conflict. If the situation looks hopeless, you have permission to retreat even if it means leaving behind the cage. As much as I sympathize with Gaara, if his own village isn't willing to stand up for him, then it would be no use for us to do so. Very well. Kakashi sighed. Kakashi, you're in charge of this mission, Tsunade decided. I agree. I admit that I may lose my temper considering that I'm a target for Akatsuki as well, Naruto confessed. Yeah, shithead might just go demon on them and destroy half of Wind Country, Tayuya quipped. One time, I make one large crater and people think you as AW. Ulking person of MSD destruction, Naruto sulked. We would be more tolerant if that crater didn't use to be a portion of Fire Country. Tsunade rolled her eyes. At any rate, time is of the essence. Go. With that the group bolted away at high speed, only stopped at the gate to present their mission scroll. Damn it Naruto, slow down a bit. Kakashi called out to the blue-eyed blonde. While we may be in a hurry, I won't be of any good to you if you keep up this speed. I might have improved my stamina significantly in the past couple years, but I still am no match for you. And while the girls are faring better, they aren't up to your level either. I know. Sorry, Kakashi. Naruto grunted as he reduced the force of his tree hopping. It's just that I'm really pissed, you know. Look, I know you're upset over Gaara getting kidnapped. That too. But what are really irking me right now are politics, Naruto growled. Politics? Kakashi blinked, not understanding what he meant. Methinks Naruto-kun means that Gaara is not even a demon vessel anymore, Kufei imputed with a pout. And if we didn't need to keep it secret in order to reduce Akatsuki's focus on Konoha even slightly as well protect Ichibi-chan's identity, Gaara would still be safe and sound in his office doing paperwork, Karen added. Yeah, it would suck for Akatsuki to know that there are 4 Biju walking around outside their hosts. After all, that fuckered Madara needs the Biju, not the Yuki batteries you've left in the former Jinchuriki, Tayuya nodded. Oh, if you put it that way, Kakashi trailed off. Well, there's that too, Naruto admitted. Though at the moment I'm just pissed that the Suna Council decided to get rid of the Hiraishin markers I left there. With the way my elemental teleportation works now, harming whatever passengers I take with me, that's the only method of instant travel I have left. Yeah, it would be great to just Hiraishin there. The sensation may still be unpleasant, but it still beats being mangled like Anya was that time. Kakashi was a little green at the gills when remembering Anya's state after the relatively short trip she had decided to hitch with Naruto. Thank Kami she's a Biju, else she would be maimed for life. Actually, with our current level of regeneration, all of our clan members would recover within a day from pretty much any physical damage short of death. Karen pushed her glass up her nose, causing them to glint ominously. We hypothesized that portions of Naruto's time magic seal pattern are affecting our regeneration, pushing our bodies to return to a state prior to the damage. Fascinating. Kakashi must, as he pushed off a larger branch more forcefully than before, leaving Karen in the dust. Can it? Nympho nerd. Nobody cares about the details. Tayuya rolled her eyes as she picked up the pace a bit as well. What was that, you foul-mouthed human vibrator? Karen shouted back. They kept the same pace for several hours, until they arrived at a small inn where Naruto expected Temari to be, having instructed her to meet up with them there via the Pactio telepathy. They had barely begun looking around when a streak of black and yellow pounced on Naruto, hugging him tightly. I know, Temari, I know. Naruto rubbed her back as he tried to calm her down. Why? Why is it always Gaara that gets the short end of the stick? Temari sobbed. First having that insane Shukaku Ichibi shoved into him before he was even born, with a faulty seal no less, TD assassination attempts from our own father, and now being hunted down like an animal. Why can't I shoulder some of his pain? Damn it. I'm supposed to be his big sister, and I haven't done anything to help. It'll be okay, Temari, we're going to rescue Gaara. We're going to bring him back to Suna and bring him back to health. And we're going to make the Akatsuki regret even considering to be born into the same world as us. Naruto promised, fully intent on consuming the souls of the Akatsuki members involved or, if not feasible, remove them from existence with a chaos element spell. And if he's dead, we'll just recover his body and have Naruto resurrect him. Tayuya shrugged. It's not like he'll get eaten by the Shinigami, unlike other people. She glanced at Naruto and Kufei. Well, as much as I hate to ruin the moment, we need to go. Kakashi advised, and a few seconds later they were off. Time skip. Over 2 days, Suna. They got Kankuro as well? Temari demanded as the group hurried towards the Suna hospital. Yes. From what I understand, it's a very potent poison that we have yet to find an antidote for. He doesn't have much time left. The Chunin guiding them said quite uncomfortably. Let me have a look at him. Even if I can't heal him completely, I'm pretty sure I can at least give him more time. Karen said with a professional look in her eyes as she entered all business, healer persona. Kanoka's artifact might still have some effect, even if it's been almost 3 days. Naruto added. As the group reached Kankuro's hospital room, they were forced to stop when an old lady, who looked even beyond the Sandame's age, attacked Kakashi as soon as she caught sight of him. Curse you! She shouted. Prepare to die, White Fang of Kono, she managed to say. Now then, Naruto stated calmly. Care to repeat that, old hag? He inquired as he held her a few feet above the ground, tied up from neck down in golden chakra chains. You're the Kyuubi's, his eyes widened. Yes. I would say that it's good to see you, but with you attacking Kakashi Hitaki, my current team leader, I would be lying. Naruto said crispy. Kakashi. Shio blinked a few times as she looked at the son of the White Fang inquisitively. Take a closer look, Ne-chan. Ebizu pointed out. He does resemble the White Fang, but that's not him. Besides, Konoha's White Fang died a long time ago, he reminded her while Kakashi waved nervously. Just kidding. Shio suddenly smiled. I was just pretending to be senile. Well, you seemed far more authentic than the real thing. Naruto said sarcastically as dropped her. How's it going, Karen? At this rate, he'll die within the hour. Karen replied as she carefully used her diagnosis jutsu on Kankuro's chest. I could easily make an antidote, but it will take more time than he has. His heart muscles are being destroyed as we speak. When did she? One of the Suna medic nin mumbled as they looked at her in shock. While you were distracted by the old doll maker. Karen muttered. What can be done? Naruto inquired. I'll extract as much poison I can to stop his body from being damaged further. After that, I hand heal him enough to last until the antidote is ready. Karen replied as she created a basin and then a greenish liquid in it. Naruto, chain him to the operation table. This extraction method will be rather painful and cause him to have muscle spasms, and I'll need him still if I don't want to overlook anything important, she requested. Gotcha. Naruto replied, and a moment later Kankuro's limbs, weights and shoulders were chained to the table by the same chakra chains that had captured Chiyo. Everyone else should back off, I'll need space, Karen instructed. While creating a huge empty basin next to her. With that she placed her left hand on the liquid in the smaller basin and took control over it with her chakra, taking it out in the form of a bubble-like glob. Carefully, she did a few incisions with her free hand before forcing the liquid into Kankuro's now violently twitching body and then drawing it out with her other hand, the liquid now containing sickly purple strands within it. That's the poison, huh? Naruto must. Here, put that sample in this. He offered her a newly created bottle. Thanks. This sample will likely be the most concentrated one, Karen said as she manipulated the poison with her chakra to leave the green blob and enter the offered bottle, which she caped while discarding the blob in the large empty basin. What kind is it? Naruto inquired as he created more of the green liquid in the smaller basin, having scanned and made a mindscape copy of it beforehand. The main component is Ricinus communa, though there is a bit of aconite in it as well, Karen informed him before focusing all her attention on the poison extraction. 22 green blobs later, she declared herself satisfied while declaring Kankuro out of the danger zone as she left Naruto to heal his muscles a bit while she made the antidote. A quick wave of Kanoka's artifact fans and the level of poison in Kankuro's system dropped further while his muscles mended themselves to an extent. It took Karen roughly 3 hours to brew the antidote, which was soon enough administered to a conscious Kankuro who was less pleased by the taste. It's made to keep you alive, not serve as dessert, Karen told him blithely. You remind me of that slug girl, Chiyo mused out loud. Well, Tsunade was the one who oversaw my medic nin training, Karen admitted sheepishly. So your people not only did squat while Gaara was fighting to keep Suna from becoming a giant hole in the ground, you don't even have any idea which way the Akatsuki escaped. Never mind what their destination is. Naruto's loud and annoyed growl drew everyone's attention to where the blonde was glaring at the Sunajunin overseeing things, Isago, while Kakashi was sighing in the background. Do you people intend to do anything at all to recover your cage? What do you think I've been doing? Kankuro shouted annoyed from across the room. From what I understand, you actually had to ignore orders to go after Gaara, Naruto pointed out. What is Suna going to do about it though? Before anyone can do anything, we need to know where they're taking Gaara, Kakashi cut in. If you need to track Gaara, you can follow the trail of the sand composing his sand armor like I did, though it has likely faded somewhat over the last few days. Kankuro began. But I managed to get a bit of Sasori's mask, he trailed off, looking significantly at Kakashi. Understood. The known dog summoner ran through the required hand signs while Kankuro retrieved the piece of cloth from the remains of his puppets that had been stared in a corner of the room. Yo, Kakashi. Pakken greeted as he and the rest of the pack appeared in a puff of smoke. I need you to track down this scent as quickly as possible, Kakashi ordered. It belongs to Sasori of the Red Sand, a member of Akatsuki who recently assisted Deidara the terrorist bomber in abducting the Godem Kazekage, Gaara Sabaku. Gotcha. We're on it, Pakken said after taking a good sniff before the entire pack ran off. Time skip. Next day around lunch. I can't believe this. Tamari growled lowly. The team that had prepared to assist them was reassigned to border duty. Tamari, you are too, Isago began. Read my forehead protector, I'm a Konoha no Ichi. I'll go where I damn well want. The blonde sister of Gaara snapped at him with a healthy dose of killing intent. Yes. Isago mumbled and backed away. So Suna won't move a finger to save their cage. Naruto remarked sarcastically. What a surprise. If you need a Suna nin, I'll do just fine. A familiar voice was heard and a second later Chiyo landed in a crouch next to the group after jumping off a high building. Chiyo-sama, you can't, Isago began wide-eyed. I'm retired. I can go wherever I want, Chiyo smirked. Alright, let's move out. Kakashi ordered and led the way, with Naruto, Faye, Tayuya, Karen, Tamari and Chiyo following. This is Sasori. Kakashi mused as the group momentarily stopped. Hey, hold on, everyone, I need to give you all a few of these. Karen called out and began to pass 5 medical shots filled with a yellow liquid to each member of the party. There are shots of the antidote to Sasori's poison. One shot will cure any recently injected poison as well as grant 3 minutes of immunity to the poison. I'm only giving you 5 not because I couldn't have made more, because I did, but because more than 5 shots will be toxic to your bodies and do more harm than good, she said out loud before adding telepathically to her clan members. Well, toxic for Kakashi and the old hag. Yes, 1 shot and our bodies will develop immunity to the poison itself. Use one of the doses when out of sight and have either me or Naruto make a replacement for it. Good work, Karen. Kakashi nodded as he stored away his shots. Now then, let's move. Time skip. 2 days later. I take it back, we should have left without any Suna reinforcements. The old lady is slowing us down. Naruto mentally groaned. Indeed, while it was still a Junin level speed, it was just barely that, as they had to slow down so that Chio could keep up. Still, she's still the best we could have gotten for this, even with the delay. She trained and raised Sasori. Nobody else knows more about how he fights and his tricks than her. The blonde demon conceded. The group had just recently entered river country where the Akatsuki base was and were about to stop for a short break when they saw the end of the tree line and what, or rather who, was waiting beyond it. Ah, the welcoming committee, Naruto smirked. Really, Orochi-chan, you shouldn't have. Kukakuku. Still the same as I last saw you, Naruto-kun. Orochimaru in Akatsuki garb smirked maliciously. However, you will find that this won't be like last time. This time I'm not crippled, nor do you have my 2 former teammates to hide behind. Since you're not singing soprano, I take it Uke-chan was not delivered on time? Kyuya smiled sweetly, her smile becoming a wide smirk at the snake Sanin's snarl. Oh, struck a nerve, has she? Karen grinned. Pedo snake mad when he lost his lollipop. Kufei must with a wide grin, earning snickers not only from the rescue team, but from the other Akatsuki member present as well. You find this funny, Hidan? Orochimaru growled. Funny? It's fucking hilarious, the silver-haired Jashinist guffawed. They seem to know you well, Orochimaru. Kakuzu remarked, and while most of his face was hidden one could recognize the amusement in his voice. Enough. The final Akatsuki member present called out. Regardless of Orochimaru's questionable preferences, her lip twitched at the look on the snake Sanin's face. We have a goal to accomplish. Oh, how surprising. I did not expect pain to leave you out of his sight, Conan. Naruto's blue eyes locked on her orange ones, before his flashed black with a 7-cornered golden star causing her eyes to widen in shock and make you lose her composure. Why you? Conan exclaimed. But, how, tell me, does the crazy fool still play with corpses? How many does he have now, 5, 6. Naruto pressed on. I doubt he would be as foolish to stretch himself to 7, no matter how deluded he is. Enough? I will not allow you to badmouth pain. Conan shot back angrily. He is another fool with a god complex. Naruto cut her off. He's not even close to the Rakudo Sennin's level, and even she was not a true god even if she came close. She? Conan blinked. Oh, you didn't know that the founder of the current world was a woman? Naruto smiled. Not surprising, really. After all, even if Nagato found out he would deny it. After all, he can choose what is right or not since he's a god. He finished sarcastically, just a fireball seemed to teleport to Orochimaru's position. Dibs on the snake fondler. Kyuya called out. I'll take the hot chick. Naruto added as he dodged a flurry of paper shuriken. What else is new? Karen rolled her eyes. I'll take Priest Boy. Ku called out, after she had just blasted away Hidan with her enlarged and lengthening staff. Then, Kakashi paused as 4 masked black Fred beasts erupted from Kakuzu's back. Me, Shio, Karen and Temari will take Kakuzu and his friends. Sounds good to me. Naruto smiled as his right eye changed into the Rinnegan much to Conan's shock. Shinra Tensai. He called out, blasting her away and then running after her. How? Conan demanded furiously. How do you have the Rinnegan? Naruto raised an eyebrow. Why the shock? Is it that surprising that I have the same bloodline as my cousin? Cousin? Conan asked as she dodged a volley of shuriken which exploded as soon as they hit the ground. Oh, you don't know? Nagato's family name is Uzumaki. Just like my mother, his parents were refugees from the land of whirlpools after Uzushio was destroyed. Though I suppose his parents left a few years before that, now that I think about it, Naruto must. No matter, he has the blood, he has the hair and he has the advanced bloodline. He's an Uzumaki alright. If he's family, then why do you oppose him? Conan demanded. Because of psychotic bastard who will destroy the world if left unchecked. Naruto shot back. Peace? Huh? All his plans will accomplish was start another great shinobi war, this time with more casualties than all three before it combined. This is what the future holds if he isn't put down. True peace cannot be achieved through war. It can only be achieved through understanding. That's just wishful thinking. Conan called back as she barraged him with bird-shaped explosive notes. Is it? Naruto demanded. In the past 3 years or so, I've personally helped forge a lasting peace between Konoha, Iwa, Kumo, Suna, Kiri and their respective allies. That's pretty much most of the known world. What has Akatsuki done? Huh? Attack Suna and almost kill everyone in the village when that psychotic little shit Deidara dropped one of his most powerful bombs on the village. That's what Akatsuki accomplished. Akatsuki is not promoting peace. It's promoting war. The war is going just fine now without the Akatsuki. Your terrorist group is neither wanted nor needed for peace. That's not true. Conan shot back. What about AIM? What about AIM? Naruto retorted. Why can't AIM also have peace? Why should AIM suffer? Conan began a fiery rant. Because AIM is the base of Akatsuki. Naruto cut her off coldly. If it was the same Akatsuki Yukihiro led, who were fighting for freedom, we would have welcomed that Akatsuki and an AIM under their command with open arms. But this Akatsuki? Abominations like Orochimaru, Hidan, Sasori, Kakuzu and Pain who use people as disposable tools just because they can. And I mean literally tools, not in the way shinobi villages use shinobi but the way shinobi use their kunai. No, with AIM backing up Akatsuki, you can sooner expect AIM to be wiped off the map than be received by the rest of the world. Then what are we supposed to do? Conan demanded rather desperately. Before he answered, Naruto summoned the Ensi's exorcisms and stabbed it into a certain point into the ground, before ripping it out with it that looked like the white half of Zetsu attached. Didn't I kill this guy already? Naruto wondered out loud before tossing the body away and turning her attention to Conan who was looking on in shock. If you want AIM to be part of a peaceful world, then Akatsuki and most of its members need to go. Especially you. Leaders. Yes, not just Nagato. That Madara Wanabe as well. You can't possibly expect me to betray Nagato, Conan exclaimed as she sent hundreds of exploding paper shuriken at him, only for them to be blocked at a wave of his hand. I expect you to put down a very mentally sick man. Naruto shook his head. Your friend, Nagato, died along with Yahiko. All that's left is Toba's puppet, Pain. You, Conan began, only to choke and spit out a mouthful of blood. Think on it, Conan. I don't want to have to time we meet, Naruto said from behind her, the fully transformed Tessaiga piercing her chest and stomach at the same time. Why, you knew Orochimaru used the Shoten no Jutsu before. You can't afford to come here in person to delay us when you have to be present for the extraction, Naruto explained. You're good, Naru, too, Fuin, with that another person clad in Akatsuki garb was left impaled on the Tessaiga, which was quickly dismissed and the body sealed away in a scroll. Naruto quickly rejoined the group just in time to see them dispose of Kakuzu's main body, which turned out to be a doppelganger as well. Conan was the same. Naruto informed them. Orochimaru too, Tayuya added. I'm not sure. They all look the same when squashed like that, Kufei admitted sheepishly. I'm pretty sure it's the same, Kakashi sighed. It was just a delay tactic. Then the extraction has begun, Shio concluded darkly. Let's find a place to set up camp and rest up. As much as I want to hurry, these guys are not to be taken lightly. Even these weaker copies were extremely dangerous. The real one should be several times more powerful, Kakashi instructed. Time skip. That night. What's keeping you up? Naruto asked without preamble as he sat down next to Chio by the fire. Although retired old people simply dumped their worries on the bastards unfortunate enough to succeed them, he remarked, thinking on how the Sandaime had buried Tsunade in all of the things he had not managed to accomplish before she took the hat. I was the one that sealed the Ichibi no Shukaku into Gaara, Shio confessed flatly. Was that supposed to be news to me? Naruto raised an eyebrow at her. For a brat, you know far more than you should about the secrets of foreign villages, Shio grumbled in annoyance. You do realize that Gaara is my brother-in-law and that I was the one that fixed his seal so that he may sleep at night, right? Naruto snorted. How did you do that, by the way? Shio inquired curiously. Replaced the old seal with a better one. Naruto shrugged nonchalantly. It was not like she needed to know the details. And you expect me to believe that the Shukaku remained within Gaara willingly? I know that the old seal had to have been completely removed in order to place a new one. Shio looked at him disbelievingly. In response, Naruto tapped the ground before him and a small tree grew in seconds from the spot. Mokuton. Shio stared in shock at the tree. You have the Shodem Hokage's Mokuton bloodline. And many others. Naruto shrugged. I don't know why you're so surprised. Multiple bloodlines are what the Fuin are best known for, after all. I don't know about that. Shio grumbled. I'm pretty sure you're more known for threatening to let the Kyuubi loose on Suna, for threatening to turn you into a hole in the ground by pointing at it, and let's not forget about killing the over a third and incapacitating just as many of Kiri's forces during the last battle of the Bloodline Purges, not to mention taking on the Yondaime Mizukage, Yagura, by yourself, and defeating him in his full Sanbi form without using any of your Byaju's power. Good times. Naruto nodded with a wide smile. Anyway, Shio rolled her eyes. I was just thinking, I've lived long and seen many things. I've even learned some of the way of the world itself. She spoke slowly, not noticing how Naruto's eyes had narrowed at that statement. And when I learned that alliances with other countries were just in name, I worked up a way to protect Suna, sealing Shukaku into Gaara. I did it to protect the village, but the result was that it caused hardship for the village, and without trusting alliances, a village we avoided, a village we betrayed, I currently trying to save us. Naruto remained silent, knowing that it was best to let her tell him everything she wanted to before giving any sort of advice or accusation. What I did was possibly entirely mistaken. Furthermore, I've gotten senile, to the point I give up easily. She sighed before smiling wryly. You know, Fuin, I'm really envious of youth. It's something that holds such possibilities. Funny, the Sandaime Tsuchikage said the same thing, though I'm pretty sure he was referring to being able to bend down without his back creaking like hell. Naruto deadpanned before sharing an amused chuckle with Chio. Still, Naruto closed his eyes with a smile. If you want advice, the best I can give you is something that I once heard the Sandaime Hokage say. Oh, what wisdom do you bring from the professor, Chio inquired. He said that the job of the old generation is to help the new one, to set a good example for them. Apparently, it's something Jiraiya agrees with as well. Something about making them old guys look cool, I guess. Naruto smiled. A good example, hey? Chio mussed quietly as she stared into the campfire. I guess there might be something left for me to do, something. At that point, Naruto took his leave and woke Kakashi and Kufei to take the next watch. Less than 5 hours later, the rescue team was landing before a crimson torii that stood a few meters in front of a boulder, almost twice as wide as the torii. On the boulder was a sealed tag bearing the kanji for forbidden, which ironically made it rather easy to locate. The hidden cavern, as while the chakra signatures inside were muffed to blend with nature, the chakra of the sealed tag stood out enough. Gofu Kekai. Chio spoke after a couple of seconds of looking at the sealed tag. We need to remove this tag at the same time the other four scattered around, otherwise the barrier won't open. Kakashi must. Would the Akatsuki really risk getting themselves trapped in there? Ku asked doubtfully. I'm sure this is not the only entrance. Groups like theirs have backups for such simple things. Kakashi replied. Naruto, can you? He stopped and tensed as he noticed the looks on Naruto, Temari and Karen's faces. Gaara is dead. Naruto said tonelessly. He's been dead for at least an hour. Karen added in the same emotionless tone. I'm fighting Deidara. Temari said in a dead tone. I don't mind backup, but I want first shot at the bastard who kidnapped my brother. There are only 3 people in there. Sasori, Deidara and Gaara. Naruto said darkly. Deidara's left arm is slightly crushed, but he can still use it effectively. He must have distracted Gaara before he could rip it off. Sigh. Well then, before we can engage them we need to get through this barrier. Kakashi began. I have us covered. Naruto cut him off. Kage Bunshin? Kakashi inquired before shrugging, not waiting for a reply. Alright since Deidara is injured is likely not at full chakra capacity, Naruto, Temari and I will handle him. Karen, Tayuya. Ku. You three are to follow Chiyo's lead unless you see a good opportunity to end it. She knows more about Sasori's fighting style than anyone else alive, so she'll be able to anticipate his moves to an extent. Understood, was the unanimous reply. So, how are you getting us in, boy? Chiyo looked at Naruto in askance. I take it you have something else in mind besides sending Kage Bunshin to the other seal tags. Here's something I learned when I was younger, Naruto said out loud after giving telepathic instructions to Karen, Kufei and Tayuya. It doesn't matter how sturdy a door is when the walls that hold it are shabby. With that, Kufei was at the right of the boulder, Karen at the left, and Tayuya had leapt to reach above. Bakuretsu Sunkei. Fei called out as the stone before her exploded inwards. Kaihan Ken. Tayuya declared as the stone above the barrier was reduced to dust. Shatter. Karen roared as she smashed her chakra-enhanced fist into the wall, blasting it away. The group took a moment to take in the image of the barrier boulder surrounded by a few dozen meters of open space before the group moved in with a buttonhook entry, facing the 2S rank missing nin responsible for the Kage's kidnapping and death. So, Deidara RK, which one of you is the Kyuubi Jinchuriki, he inquired as his eye-scope took them in. Really? That's the first thing you thought of saying? Karen's eye twitched. Kuretsuchi was right. He's an idiot, Tayuya added. Oi, don't got talking about that weak bitch, Deidara's smirk was replaced by sneer. Weak? Compared to the little shit that only gained recognition by mutilating himself? That's a laugh. Naruto snorted. He's the Jinchuriki. Sasori spoke up before Deidara could open his mouth. The Yondaime Hokage's son. Gee, looks like we found out who's the brains of this pair, Karen smirked. Now, we can't use our usual expectations for some wannabe artists like them, Naruto said sagely. I mean, after all, they're just, well, ninja. Nothing more. What was that? Sasori snarled. You little, Deidara began. Chidori Nagashi. Naruto rolled his eyes as lightning rolled off his body and into the ground all around the rescue team before fading away just as with a wave of her hand Temari shredded a few white clay birds that had tried to sneak up on them. Is that it? Or should we come by later so you can put together a decent trap? How did he? Deidara grunted. He's a Fuin. Their clan is notorious for having gained all sorts of bloodlines. Sasori stated. I would be surprised if they didn't have at least one dojutsu. You got that right, dollboy. Naruto smirked as he activated his Sharingan for them to see. Tisk. Deidara closed his real eye. Fucking Uchiha. Speaking of Uchiha, Kufei smirked. Itachi sends his love. Tayuya grinned, and is asking if the other Akatsuki members are still taking turns fucking you up the ass, what with him no longer being around to make you forget afterwards. You bitch. Deidara snarled. Stick to the plan. Sasori grunted, ignoring the glare his partner threw at him. He's not denying it, you notice, Naruto pointed out. With a snarl, Deidara threw a small clay bird which instantly enlarged and ate Gaara's body before the rescue team could do more than gape at them. What the fuck are you doing with my brother? Temari snapped. Oh, he's just carrying it for me, till I have time to cut it open and play with it, Sasori said nonchalantly. Great, another necrophil. Naruto mumbled. Like the old snake fondler wasn't enough. Tayuya spat. Deidara took the opportunity and flew away on the bird through the huge space the team had created around the barrier, with Kakashi, Temari and Naruto following. Now then, Grandma Chiyo, it's time to add you to my collection. With you and the Jinchuriki, I will have exactly 300 pieces. Sasori informed them as his long segmented tail emerged from under the Akatsuki garb. Are you included in that number? Karen inquired as her Gokei Byakugan gazed within the Hiroko puppet. I see Konoha is very well informed. Sasori remarked. No, I'm afraid that I had to replace my body parts piece by piece, and as such it was impractical to make a human puppet out of my former mortal body. What, you think yourself immortal now? Tayuya demanded. What remains human of you will wither away eventually, or would have, considering you will die today. Karen corrected herself. You're quite cocky, Konoha brat, Sasori said as the tail darted at Karen, poised to stab her in the gut, only for a resounding smack to be heard as Karen backhanded the tail away without even a glance. The tail is poisoned, just like all his other weapons, most likely, Karen informed her group. Of course, after all, Sasori began with a scoff only to pause when a heel drop from Tayuya disintegrated most of the tail and the hard stone under it, leaving the foul-mouthed redhead ankle deep in dust in a rather large crater. One less thing to worry about. Tayuya smirked. That is an interesting ability, Sasori said slowly, watching Tayuya like a hawk, with far more interest than he had showed in the entire exchange. It wasn't a chakra-enhanced blow like the other girl did. Some kind of elemental manipulation? Wind perhaps? But to have turned it into dust? A new bloodline? Sasori asked with glee evident even in his mostly emotionless voice. Yufuin will truly be the jewel of my collection. That was all the Suna missing Nin managed to say before the greatly extended and enlarged form of the Shinshintetsu Jizaikon wielded by Ku-Fei squashed the Hiroko puppet, but not soon enough as from within the rubble a smaller figure darted away. You are boring, Uru. I want to kill him quick so we can catch up with Naruto, Ku demanded. Then I will cut to the chase, Sasori decided as he revealed his puppet face which had been modeled after his original body. Though I admit it's surprising to see a monkey summon in your hands. Monkey? You blind, Uru, this is a staff, Ku blinked. No matter. Sasori pulled out a scroll and with a puff of smoke another puppet appeared. One that looked familiar to some of them. The Sandame Cage, so it was you. Chio shook her head in disgust. You have been involved in the death of 5 Cage. I'm ashamed of you. My heart bleeds, Sasori shot back. And I was not involved in the Yondaime's death, that is just one of my spies working for Orochimaru. So Kabuto Yakushi is your spy then? Ku-Fei spoke. Good to know, Uru. Enough talk. I've waited enough to kill you. I hate waiting. Sasori hissed as a large volume of iron sand flowed from inside the Sandame Cage's puppet body, spreading all around Sasori like a fine black mist. Satetsu Shigur. He declared as hundreds projectiles of iron sand formed all over the place and shot towards the rescue team. Kekai. Hansha Q. Karen called out as she slapped her hands together and a transparent yellowish sphere formed around her in Ku. The iron sand projectiles splashing over the surface of the barrier like bugs on a windshield. Yuritan. Hokai no Perusa. Tayuya shouted as she thrust her left palm forward unleashing a wave of vibrating chakra that blasted away the projectiles in even smaller iron particles than they were before, and at the same time protecting Chio as well. You have interesting jutsu. Sasori must as all the iron sand moved this time, but how much can your defenses stand? Satetsu Keshu. He declared as several pyramids, cubes and other shapes of compressed high-density iron sand that had formed around him were sent at high speed towards the group, causing them to dodge like hell. Oi, old hag, Tayuya called out, what can you tell us about the puppet? For starters, the Sandame Cage possessed the Jishin bloodline and used it to replicate the Ichibi's control over sand using fine iron particles. Chio replied as she barely dodged a particularly sharp pyramid. It's not as versatile since he has limited ammunition, but he can probably do most of the jutsu Gaara could. Also, Sasori probably soaked it all in pois, she managed to say before her eyes widened in shock as she noticed a particularly large object falling towards her. Ha! Ku shouted as she swung her humongous staff and smacked the compressed mass of iron sand away straight towards Sasori, who instantly broke it apart into fine iron sand which was easier to divert away from him. Satetsu Kaiho. Sasori whispered as most of the iron sand converged in a humongous sphere above the allied group. Ku-Fei prepared to smack it away as soon as it was close enough, but what happened next stopped her in her tracks. Spikes erupted from the sphere in all directions, particularly towards them, in a way eerily similar to Haku's Hyeten. Akai Korine. It was faster though, far faster, and they barely had time to dodge or block with something before the ground was pierced by thousands of iron spikes of varying thickness. It was then that they discovered another purpose for the technique besides offense. They were trapped. Now then, Sasori seemed to smirk as the Sandaime Cage's mouth opened and a purple sphere shot out towards them. Soshujin. Chiyo whispered as several kunai controlled by chakra threads shot from the iron sand spikes and hit the purple sphere, which exploded, emitting an increasing purple cloud. Poison. In response, the entire group reached towards their satchels as soon as sight of them was obscured of the poison cloud and administered the antidote to themselves. Then, further taking advantage of the opportunity, Ku found a clear shot at the cage puppet and used it to lengthen her staff at high speed, putting a hole through it before pulling it away from a shocked Sasori. Taking advantage of the Akatsuki member having temporarily lost control of his weapon, Teyuya dashed towards the cage puppet, all the way blasting all the spikes in her path with powerful vibrations. She was a few meters from it when its right hand suddenly pointed towards her and opened, revealing several seals from which hundreds of other puppet hands that headed towards her almost like a wall, only to be surrendered by a yellowish chain of chakra and ripped away towards Karen, who then used several ultra-thin chakra threads to cut the puppet hands to pieces, giving Teyuya a clear way. Yuriden. Hokai no Seshoku. The foul-mouthed redhead declared as the puppet that once been the Sandaime cage was blasted away in mostly dust, only a few metal pieces here and there. You will pay for that, Sasori stated as pointed a hand towards Karen and another towards Teyuya, and from the tubes that protruded from his palms thick streams of fire erupted, shooting towards the redheads. Shinra Tensai. The girls called out in one voice and the fire was repelled for a few seconds, long enough for them to dodge. Those eyes, Sasori whispered with apparent hunger as he focused the flamethrowers on them once again, only to frown as the fire seemed to be sucked into the bodies of the girls until his sealed supply was exhausted. I see, so you can absorb chakra from ninjutsu. You catch on quick, Pinocchio-kun. Kufei grinned as he dodged a swing of her humongous staff. Well then, I guess I shall reveal my masterpiece to you all. Sasori smirked as he took out a large scroll from which 100 red-clothed puppets of various shapes and sizes erupted, all moving under Sasori's control. Impressive, nay. Kufei whistled. Even the dollmaster, Eva-chan, has trouble controlling more than a few dozen puppets at the same time. Okay, enough screwing around. Karen adjusted her now mostly decorative glasses. Faye, Teyuya, let's cut loose, she said as chakra erupted from her as she opened no less than 3 of the celestial gates. Agreed. Ku smirked as an aura of ki erupted from her. About damn time. Teyuya grinned viciously as her seal immediately brought her to her level 2 state. Wait, don't, Chiyo managed to say before the 3 girls had disappeared, with Shundo appearing in the midst of the puppets and began ripping them to pieces. The 2 puppet masters watched in shock as in less than a minute the numbers dropped from 100 to single digits, which were standing guard around Sasori. Monsters. Sasori mumbled. Look who's talking. Teyuya snorted as she appeared near him and ripped apart half of his guards. Before her could jump away, a chain of chakra erupted from his chest, piercing his heart. Any last words? Karen inquired as she calmly approached, a chakra chain protruding from her back and embedded in the ground, revealing that it had traveled underground to reach Sasori. Gah! It's messing up my chakra, troll. Hey, he laughed softly. Very well, I'm expecting a report from Kabuto, Tenchi Bridge, in 10 days, report on Orochimaru. You're quite open on betraying your allies, Ku remarked. Always hated, he managed to say before Karen with her Rinnegan active ripped away his soul using the human path. It's done. Karen whispered after a few seconds and looking pale and quite disgusted, the memories she had ripped from the puppet master being quite unpleasant. She formed a few cage bunshin and ordered them to gather the remaining intact puppets and seal them away, and was about to do the same with Sasori's own body when a puff of smoke covered Sasori's left hand. A reverse summoning, I think. Teyuya growled. It was the Akatsuki ring. I was taking it off and it disappeared. So they've taken measures. Karen sighed. No wonder. They've already lost a few. Ku shrugged. We'll have to do something about it. Karen sighed. What's so important about those rings that they had to place such seals on them? Chiyo inquired as she gazed upon Sasori's body. They're used to regulate the sealing of the biju in their container, Ku answered. Oh well. Karen shrugged as she sealed Sasori and handed the scroll to Chiyo, who nodded in thanks. I've sent Naruto a message about it. Tayuya spoke up. Let's go catch up with them. With Naruto's group. I have good news and bad news. Naruto spoke up. Good news first. Temari demanded. Sasori is dead with no casualties or injuries worth mentioning on our side, Naruto replied. And the bad news? Kakashi inquired as his Mangekyo Sharingan tracked Deidara's erratic flight path, which the bomber had taken to using after Naruto had blasted away one of his legs at the knee with a wave of Sagitta Magica, while a Kamui courtesy of Kakashi had ripped away his left arm and most of his shoulder. The Akatsuki have taken measures to keep their rings safe. A reverse summoning seal perhaps, Naruto sighed. Damn. It was likely either Nagato or Sasori's work. From our info, they're the only ones with the Fuinjutsu expertise to place such a complex seal on such a small surface. Kakashi grunted. Orochimaru could have probably managed as well given enough time, Naruto opined. We need to take this guy down now, Temari said as she eyed the forest ahead. Disrupt his flight and I'll deal with his bird. I'll use some lightning attacks. It will disrupt the clay and won't do much damage to Gaara's body even if it reaches him. Naruto instructed as he began chanting mentally. Got it. Temari, Futon, Okamaitachi, she called out as she swung her fully opened war fan, unleashing heavy air currents that collide together to create many vacuum pockets to slash at the giant clay bird. As expected, Deidara managed to barely dodge, though his control was rather shaky due to the powerful currents. Iaculatio fulguris, Naruto announced as roughly 100 spears of lightning shot into the sky, several of them piercing the clay bird and rendering it immobile, causing it to crash land just at the edge of the forest. A few Chishio Bunshin quickly arrived and recovered Gaara's body and took it away from the bird while the ninja dashed after Deidara. As soon as they caught sight of them though, they stopped in their tracks. Hee, you're not taking me alive. A maniacally laughing Deidara greeted them as his body continued to bulge. I'm a clay clone, Naruto declared after a quick inspection with the Rinnegan. Shinra Tensei, he said calmly as he blasted away the clone, causing it to explode further away. Now where is, what the fuck? His eyes widened as his 4 dojutsu fusion gazed at something a distance away before he deactivated them. What is it? Kakashi demanded. He got away. Naruto sighed. The guy with the orange spiral mask took him away. Madara. Kakashi tensed. Supposedly, Naruto muttered, but half of his body was like Zetsu's while the other did not look anywhere near his supposed age, even with various medical jutsu to keep him young. So he's not really Madara? Temari frowned. I don't know. Like I said before, the mask has seals that prevent me to see his face. More effective than our Anbu masks even. Naruto sighed as she walked over to Gaara's body before suddenly looking in the direction they came from before relaxing. As he inspected Gaara's body, Chiyo, Karen, Ku and Tayuya landed around them. We took one of his arms and a leg at the knee, but Tobi took him away before we could finish the job. Naruto said before the question was even spoken. I see. Chiyo sighed as she kneeled next to Gaara's body. So inquired he gazed at her with his fused dojutsu as he had used them for examining Gaara. Now I fulfill my duty to Gaara. Chiyo spoke softly, earning a few raised eyebrows as she placed her hands over Gaara's body, emitting a powerful blue glow. That's Karen's Mangekyo Sharingan Gokei Byakugan eyes widened in shock at the scene. Life transfer jutsu? Naruto recognized the effects as his eyes literally saw the life leave Chiyo's body and enter Gaara's. It was more than chakra, it was literally the transfer of life from each cell of her body into the target. Naruto was reasonably certain that this technique could possibly breathe life into something that has never been alive in the first place, considering the effect it had on Gaara. Even the cells that had been dead long before the extraction were being given life. Oi, if she finishes that, Tayuya pointed out, she's already beyond the point of no return. Naruto groaned. Reckless old hag. While self-sacrifice is what the best shinobi embody, being suicidal is not. Maybe, but this is my responsibility, Chiyo whispered. Look after Gaara, will you? He's still rough around the edges, but he's a better cage than either his father or the Sandame. Damn straight, he's my brother-in-law. Naruto smirked. Good. Chiyo smiled as she finished the jutsu and collapsed on her back just as Gaara opened his eyes. Yo, how's it going? Naruto greeted the red-haired Kage. Naruto. Gaara blinked a few times. Wasn't I dead? Yeah, you were for a while. You can thank Chiyo here for reviving you. Naruto spoke as his Susanoo materialized and drew the Tenseiga. After I revive her. With that, the heavenly rebirth fangs swung through Chiyo's body, enveloping her in a blue aura for a few seconds. Slowly opening her eyes, Chiyo looked around before her gaze froze on Naruto and Gaara. Congratulations. Your playing dead performance has reached a new height, Naruto deadpanned. I'm alive? The old lady blinked in shock a few times as she took stock of her surroundings. Yes. And next time don't start a self-sacrifice jutsu without listening to the alternatives. Not to brag, but I know all kinds of jutsu. Naruto smirked while internally adding. Though I only had the Tenseiga and the Gedo. Rinne Tensai no Jutsu as true resurrection methods. With this, Kisho Tensai I believe is the right name for it, I have 3. And I sure as hell won't be teaching it to someone else. Well, we should head back to Suna since. Kakashi began only to pause, and soon enough dozens of Suna nin arrived at the scene. Gaara. Kankuro exclaimed as he landed at his brother's side. The council actually gave you permission to come here? And so many? Naruto asked in shock. Unfortunately, the council was indisposed, something related to them inhaling experimental paralysis poison, so, as a proud Junin of Sunagakure, I did what I thought was best for my village. Kankuro smirked. Hey, I knew Gaara kept you around for something, makeup boy. Naruto grinned. It's war paint. Kankuro shouted to the heavens. Gaara-sama. A hellish squeal was heard and Naruto was instantly away from the Kazekage, who now had a few girls fussing over him. The look Gaara gave the blonde was clearly one of betrayal. The shrug Naruto gave in return clearly said, better you than me. Time skip. 2 days later, Konohagakure, Hokage's office. And after the Kazekage and his brother saw us off, we returned here with the Hiraishin. Also, Gaara assured us that he will arrange a place for Naruto to set his Hiraishin markers within the village. Kakashi finished his report. I see. Tsunade nodded in satisfaction. Karen, what's the word on the information you acquired from Sasori? Kabuto was indeed one of his spies. Karen replied. And he will be at Tenchi Bridge 8 days from now. However, Orochimaru was the one who arranged for Sasori to recruit Kabuto, and the snake also removed the seal Sasori placed on Kabuto. It's actually Sasori who was being spied on, not Orochimaru. Naruto put his 2 cents in. Either way, Kabuto is likely to be there at the provided time. Tsunade must. It's an opportunity. We haven't been able to pinpoint Orochimaru's location for a while now. Akatsuki doesn't know his location either, as far as Sasori knew. Though the masked guy most likely knows. Also, Toby has been acting like a complete imbecile among the Akatsuki. He probably is only showing his true self to Nagato and Konan. Deidara hasn't shown to know otherwise, so his memories have likely been modified. Karen provided. I see. Well, I will decide on a team to take care of this. Tsunade decided. I request to be on it. Kakashi spoke up. Me as well, and Anko. Naruto added. I'm willing to go as a medic nin. Karen added. I'll think about it. Tsunade nodded before adding, yes to Yuya. I know you want to go as well. This closed the redhead's mouth. Now everyone besides Naruto is dismissed. As soon as the others left, Tsunade sent away the Anbu guards as well and activated the privacy seals, and then seized Naruto's lips and began to undress, the male blonde following her example. Aren't you eager? Naruto remarked as she went down on him. More than half a week of paperwork without stress relief does that. Tsunade joked. You poor thing. Snakes in the grass. Samui moaned as she awoke, her blue eyes gazing into his heterochromatic ones. Good morning, Naruto-sama. None of that, Samui-chan. Naruto chided. I've told you more than once that I dislike being addressed formally by friends and family. He told her, adding mentally, and while you're currently in the first category, experience had taught me that you're likely to end up in the second one. Wait, she's Yugito's older sister, so she's already family. He blinked as he remembered that last tidbit. Good morning, lover-kun. A sensual voice spoke up from his left and a glance confirmed that yes, May was indeed there. Having summoned him with the Hiraiishin marker, he left her in order to spend some quality time with him. He was taken aback a bit when not even a week later he was being talked into an S&M fivesome with Kurenai being the submissive, but he could not deny being turned on by the sight of a black leather-bound Kurenai tied to his bed. The rest was, as they say, history. With Kurenai moving in the Fuin compound soon after and spending more than a bit of quality time with Yakumo. She was not a Fuin quite yet, but as far as he could tell it was only a matter of time. Once the distrust and dislike towards her was gone, she managed to fit in quite well and had obviously enjoyed the time she spent with Naruto infinitely more than she was still tentatively dating Asumaseru Tobi over 2 years ago. Naruto still remembered with amusement of how she had given him an ultimatum. Her or his cigarettes. The girlish scream that erupted from Asuma's throat when Kurenai kicked him in the balls for choosing the cigarettes was the stuff of legends even outside Konoha. Well girls, I would love to stay in bed with you for a few more hours, but unfortunately I have to leave for a mission in 2 hours and by then may need to be back in Kiri and Samui. You said you have to leave by lunchtime, right? Naruto stated more than asked. Yes, unfortunately. Samui sighed, not that happy she had to return home so soon since the council were still in charge for a few more days. Well, I suppose giving Ao another reason to complain is not something I want to be part of. He's annoying enough as it is. May sighed before glancing at the still sleeping genjutsu specialists. What about them? They planned on training today, so I suppose we can leave them to wake up when they want. Naruto shrugged as Samui got off him. Main village gate, 2 hours later. Well, have a safe trip. With any luck, by the time you're back we'll have one less S-rank missing nin to worry about. Tsunade said as she saw them off. It's a shame Jiraiya isn't here. Or Kakashi. Naruto sighed. It can't be helped. With the Akatsuki on the move, even more attention to his spy network. And Kakashi is one of the few that know how to contact him discreetly enough. Tsunade sighed, understanding his annoyance. Point. Naruto agreed before glancing at his team. Other than himself, 2 other Fuin were coming on this mission, namely Anko and Tayuya, while the last member usually wore the Anbu mask of Cat, his Anbu codename being Tenzo, though at the moment he was to be referred as Yamato. Naruto found it ironic that the entire team had past ties with Orochimaru in some way, with him absorbing all his memories from a cursed seal, Anko and Tayuya being branded with a cursed seal, and finally Yamato being experimented on as a child and having the Mokuton of the Shodem implanted in him, though incompletely. To this day, Naruto always found it hilarious that Orochimaru could implant small portions of his soul and some of his senjutsu chakra in people through the use of the cursed seal, but never figured out that a requirement to truly use Mokuton one needed at least some senjutsu chakra in them. Even with the complete bloodline from Danzo's arm, Tsunade had had to rely on the enhancing powers of her necklace to properly use Mokuton before she learnt some senjutsu as well. She was not a master by any stretch, but it came easier to her to fuse with slug that gathered natural energy for her than it was for Jiraiya, since she was well accustomed with that kind of fusion, only with her being the one sending chakra through the slug in order to heal others. Still, between Tenzu's still impressive Mokuton, Anko's skilled Kaigaten, Tayuya's destructive Uridan and his own numerous skills, he was quite certain the mission would be a success one way or another. Well, move out. Tsunade motioned and with that they were off. Time skip. Next day, Tenchi Bridge. Are you sure this will work? For the last time, Yamato, it will work just fine. Now shut up, we're supposed to be hiding, remember? Naruto sighed in annoyance. Their plan was rather simple. Naruto had Tenzo make an almost perfect copy of Sasori's Hiroko puppet using his Mokuton. Then Naruto made a copy of Sasori's puppet body with his Mokuton, with said Sasori puppet now within the Hiroko copy. And at the heart of it all, literally, was a Mokuton cage bunshin of Tenzo under a cage. Henge Naruto had taught him, in the very chest of the Sasori puppet, using chakra threads of control both puppet bodies. It was difficult, but in the end all it had to do was walk in a straight line on the bridge to meet up with the spy and then chat with him or her before signaling them to move in for capture at the opportune moment. He's here. Anko announced with narrowed eyes. Indeed, The spy was calmly walking towards the fake Sasori at a moderate pace, his features hidden by a hood, until he took it off and threw them for a loop. Kabuto? Tenzo asked in shock. Yes. However, Kabuto had his mind control seal removed by Orochimaru years ago. Naruto informed him with some annoyance. So this mission is a bust? Tenzo asked quietly. Not precisely. It just means we'll have a harder job getting information out of him, though it will also be more rewarding. As Orochimaru's right-hand man, he's be best informed in the snake's ranks. Naruto said eventually. Let's see how much your clone can get out of him willingly before we more to capture him, he decided. Sure enough, the discussing between the silver-haired traitor and the Bunshin-controlled puppet was going well, with a rather submissive Kabuto answering the questions Sasori was asking him, including the location of Orochimaru's current base, which was about half a day away from the bridge. It was when Sasori asked about the rogue Uchiha that things got a bit interesting. Tell me about the current situation of Sasuke Uchiha, Sasori demanded. Well, as you know, he's receiving regular training from him, who takes Sasuke-kun and brings him back with that unusual teleportation jutsu of his. Kabuto began. I'm aware of this. Sasori said impatiently. I'm interested in what Orochimaru has been doing with him. The usual body-enhancing drugs, taijutsu conditioning and Raiden ninjutsu, Kabuto shrugged. What of his dojutsu? Sasori asked. He hasn't fully adapted to Fugaku Uchiha's Mangekyo Sharingan. Kabuto answered with a bit of reluctance. From what Orochimaru-sama and I can tell, it's likely due to Fugaku never actually using his Mangekyo, what with Itachi killing him seconds after he achieved it. He explained with some frustration. Also, the influence of the Shodem Hokage's cells over his eyes are also making them a bit unstable. So no Rinnegan yet, huh? Sasori hummed. No, while it should be a far faster process than should Sasuke-kun been an adult, it will still take some time before his eyes evolve into the Rinnegan. Kabuto shook his head. And when it happens, you will stage an accident that kills the brat, but leaves his body and his eyes in particular unharmed. Sasori ordered. I understand. Kabuto nodded. After all, unlike them, I don't need the brat alive to be of use to me, Sasori remarked. Back behind the cover of the trees, Tenzo was congratulating himself for letting Naruto drill him so well in how and what to discuss with the spy. Wow, I never know Tenzo could act so well, Anko remarked impressed. I may have used a bit of genjutsu to get him into the role better. Naruto admitted shamelessly. Oh my, manipulating our allies. How evil of you, Naruto-kun. Tayuya smirked. I don't trust this guy much, Naruto replied. And not because Orochimaru experimented on him. You see, after the experiment was deemed mostly a failure, Danzo took him into root. Didn't we have the root killed during the Otto invasion? Anko blinked. After Sandaime retook the position of Hokage, Danzo tried to have Sarutobi assassinated. Tenzo is one of the would-be assassins. Kakashi was another, but he chose to inform the Sandaime of the attempt and fought off Tenzo, but let him live since he could be useful in the future. Kakashi had a few run-ins with Tenzo after Orochimaru went rogue, and eventually Tenzo decided that the Sandaime's way of doing things was better. Danzo was about to kill him when Sarutobi showed up and took Tenzo under his wing, placing him under Kakashi in Anbu. Naruto shared a bit of history with them. He's had a perfect record since, but until I have a chance to look at what exactly Orochimaru did to him, I won't trust the snake not to have placed some failsafe in him. You're testing him, that's why you accepted to take him on this mission, Anko summarized. Something like that. Naruto agreed. But I'm also using him as bait. Tobi would likely find a Mokuton user, even an incomplete one, quite tempting. With Akatsuki on the move, we're likely to see him again soon. Somehow, I doubt he'll approach you, Tayuya remarked. From what you've told us, he was rather spooked by your chaos element jutsu. And with that village-wide Fuinjutsu array you've made under Konoha using the old root tunnels, his Kamui won't work in the village. Anko added. It does suck that it blocks all Kamui, not just his though. With the alternative being that he could sneak in and kill us in outsleep at any time, I'm willing to be restricted to Hiraishin as my only means of teleportation for now. Naruto said before his blue eye became a chip of ice. Look what the cat dragged in. At the other end of the bridge, Orochimaru and Akunoichi the Fuin recognized as Gurren, the Shoten user, came forth. In response to Sasori, drawing a kunai, Kabuto jumped to his side, facing Orochimaru as he took a fighting stance. "It's good you drew a kunai, Sasori-sama, otherwise they would have taken me by surprise," Kabuto commented. "So you followed Kabuto here then?" Sasori asked, not appearing too concerned. "Oh, I just wanted to give you my thanks for sending him my way." Orochimaru smirked. "With his skills, I am able to reuse my test subjects quite a few times. Good specimens are hard to come by." At that, Kabuto activated and cut through the Hiroko puppet body, exposing the other one inside, which jumped away, avoiding the wave of snakes that erupted from Orochimaru's sleeve to capture him. "So this is his real body?" Kabuto remarked. "Yes, still, are you telling me that even you, one of his subordinates, don't know what he really looks like?" Orochimaru inquired in amusement. "Well, he was a gloomy individual after all, always hiding in that puppet of his," Kabuto shrugged. "Still, how rude of you to spy on me, Sasori. What would Pain and Toby think if they heard?" Orochimaru taunted. "Spy on you?" A monotonous voice came from Sasori as the young-looking clothed puppet walked calmly towards Orochimaru. "Nonsense. I was merely looking for vessels for my art, and it so happens you have a supply of them." By now he had walked past a wary Kabuto and then stopped midway between the silver-haired spy and Orochimaru. "You don't say?" Orochimaru narrowed his eyes in displeasure and suspicion. "Though I have lent a few things from that brat, Deidara, as well." Sasori seemed to smirk as he formed a ram hand sign. "Art is a bang." And with that, Sasori exploded in a huge fireball, destroying a good portion of the bridge and blasting the auto nin away, sending Kabuto to the other side of the bridge than where he came from. "What?" Orochimaru began with an angry and confused hiss, only for his eyes to widen and jump away just in time to avoid the several spears of ice that pierced his previous position. Similarly, Gurren had managed to avoid the heel drop that disintegrated a few meters worth of earth where it hit. "Hey there, Rochi-chan. Did ya miss me?" Naruto smirked as he came into view with Tayuya appearing at his side. "You," Orochimaru snarled before reining in his temper and glancing towards Kabuto's location, where the silver-haired medic Nin was fighting Anko and what he barely recognized as his partially successful Mokuton lab rat. "It hasn't been long enough, Kyuubi brat," he remarked. "Though I suppose we were going to cross paths eventually either way." "So you got Itachi's old assignment, huh?" Naruto must. "And your partner is, who exactly?" "I have no use for a partner." Orochimaru scoffed. "Unlike you who became weaker, I have only grown stronger." He smirked and his eyes became the Sharingan. "I suppose it is karma. That after you crippled me and Sasuke it happened to you as well?" "Those eyes, I see, so you somehow managed to make them work properly in a non-Uchiha like I did with Kakashi." Naruto narrowed his eyes as his blue one became the Sharingan-Byakugan combination as he eyed how the eyes were wired to the chakra network. "You had them implanted before you took this body as host, didn't you?" "Yes, it took quite a bit of trial and error before we got it right," Orochimaru admitted grudgingly, annoyed that Naruto had fixed up Kakashi on his first try. But then again, Toby was most generous with the Sharingan eyes he provided me with. "I'm sure he kept more than a few spares in case he needs to use Izanagi," Naruto remarked, and his lip twitched at the anger that suddenly appeared in Orochimaru's eyes. "Oh, don't tell me. Izanagi doesn't work for you." "Apparently either Uchiha or Senju blood is required from the user," Orochimaru hissed. Uzumaki." Naruto chuckled darkly. "Enough talk though, back to business." "Oh, why the rush?" Orochimaru smirked. "You have quite a mouth on you." Orochimaru's eyes narrowed further. "You truly believe you can best me? Last time we actually met in battle I was crippled, but now I'm stronger than ever." "Believe?" Tayuya snorted. "Bitch, you're barely considered an annoyance. We know we can kill you." "Oh, you have sure gotten confident, Tayuya. But do remember that your power came from me," Orochimaru began. "My weakness came from you," Tayuya corrected. "With the piece of shit you put in my seal gone, you're not holding back my power anymore. There's a reason why she's an elite Jonin, you know," Naruto remarked just as ground beneath Gurren exploded upwards into dust. the Shoten user barely creating a shield to take the wave of vibrating energy headed her way. There are no weaklings in my clan, Orochimaru. Unlike you who rely on tons of cannon fodder, I surround myself with people capable of taking on S ranks and not only survive, but win. And with that, Naruto and Orochimaru darted at each other, swords appearing in their hands and clashing furiously before another appeared in Naruto's free left hand, pressing Orochimaru to distance himself a bit. Oh, you finally learned that sealing a sword inside yourself makes it slow to retrieve? I guess you can teach an old snake new tricks. Naruto remarked as he eyes the small containment seal inked on the Sanin's wrist. Orochimaru did not indulge him in banter again, quickly moving through hand signs before sending a few globs of mud towards Naruto, which midway hardened and exploded into stone needles that rained towards the blonde. He's fighting smarter, Naruto remarked as he sent blasts of wind from both hands to blow the needles away. I suppose that without the pain of the Yuki eating at him he can think clearer. Yuki huh? Why not? Naruto chuckled, catching Orochimaru off guard. Something amusing, Naruto-kun? Orochimaru hissed as he began forming one-handed hand signs with both hands. I just remembered how affected you were by the Yuki attack that took your arm and leg. Left you unable to regenerate them, didn't it? Naruto asked rhetorically. Before his eyes turned blood red and his canines grew as dark crimson, Yuki oozed from his body, causing the Magia Arabia spell pattern to become visible as the skin over it was burned away, and it was no surprise it did. What with the 6 tails now swaying behind Naruto, within each a spine like bone tail Naruto had created using his Shikatsumiku. On his arms and legs his blood compressed and darkened into an almost black crimson clawed gauntlets and greaves. Unlike before the meteorite incident, the Yuki cloak was not reminiscent of a fox. Rather, it was more reptilian in nature, and as the killing intent washed over him, Orochimaru was left with the impression that he was being stared down by an enormous black dragon that was snarling at him. This is, Orochimaru whispered as he stared incomprehensibly at Naruto. This is not the Kyuubi's power. What have you done to yourself, child? I evolved. Naruto replied. Nothing you would know about, considering that you went from walking as a human to crawling like a snake. You. Orochimaru blinked, and a moment later a swing of Naruto's arm had sent him crashing at 100 miles per hour through the forest, a huge path of downed trees forming from the shockwave. Naruto darted after him at high speed, his Koku Shundo greatly enhanced by the demon shroud, making him appear before Orochimaru once more just as the snake Sanin finished peeling himself from the mouth of his shed skin, his wounds gone. And you accuse me of abandoning my humanity? Orochimaru laughed hysterically. You're the same. The same? Naruto asked as a 7th tail formed. Foolish little snake, to think that he actually believes he can compare with an immortal Shinso, such a deluded fool. Immortal? A hungry gleam appeared in the white snake's eyes. How did this come to be? Among other things, I had a full soul unlike yourself who keep leaving behind crumbs wherever you go. Naruto said with disgust, and a moment later he was trading blows with Orochimaru in taijutsu. It was not an even match by far. Naruto was damaging Orochimaru simply by touching him, however it seemed that Orochimaru was indeed prepared to deal with a demon or a Jinchuriki at least, as he was in what appeared to be a semi-sage mode, as natural energy coated his body, granting him more than a bit of resistance to the Yuki as well as enhancing his blows, making the hits he actually landed on Naruto hurt even if any damage was healed almost immediately. More than once Orochimaru was forced to shed his skin, but it seemed allowed him to predict Naruto's chaotic style enough to avoid instantly crippling or killing blows. It was only when Orochimaru began to enhance his hands with wind chakra that Naruto began to take some actual damage, until he used a small opening in the rhythm of battle to clap his hands, merging the ki he had gathered in his left with the mana in his right, invoking a kanka under the demon cloak and changing its color from dark crimson into a dark orange. In response, Orochimaru began to enhance himself with even more wind chakra as he increased his input of senjutsu chakra through his body, not even close to matching Naruto, but what he lacked in power he mostly compensated with experience, as well as repeated shedding of his skin, each time regenerating the damage dealt to him. He's not getting tired anytime soon. He must have linked his skin shedding Kawarimi directly to the energy he's drawing from the surroundings. Naruto must, as he allowed Orochimaru an extra second to recover in order to examine him with his dojutsu. Yes, and he's apparently in the level 2 state of the cursed seal he had placed on his host before he took the body as his own. Hate to admit it, but compared with the bits of senjutsu chakra he was able to use 3 years ago when I gained his memories, he has actually gotten a lot better. Had it not been so disgustedly tainted, I would have called him a better senin than Jiraiya and Tsunade. Ever since Naruto had his unfortunate meeting with Hoshigakure's meteorite, the rest of the Fuin and their close allies had been training hard to not only compensate for his stare of weakness, but to be able to both protect him and fight at his side when things got rough. In doing so, more than a few had eventually found themselves in the ironic situation of not being safe to fight alongside due to the effects their powers had on their surroundings. Exhibit A. Tayuya, who was currently emanating a near-continuous field of vibrations that ripped apart the bonds between the molecules of whatever she was touching, between atoms if she used her level 2 seal. Of course, most of the effects could easily be resisted either with the magic cancel or with the Preta patch of the Rinnegan, however that would make the fighting awkward and hind them. As such, they had decided that unless necessary, they would fight on their own until they could fully control their powers. Of course, the Pactio rings. Naruto's girls could raise their control over their power greatly, however they had learned not to always use that crutch unless it was too important to mess up. Among those who have gotten stronger were the two still loyal. Sannin, who had begun refining their senjutsu, or in Tsunade's case began to learn it first. Jiraiya's progress was not too good. While he could enter Sage mode, it was imperfect and it gave him a few frog features, not to mention it took him forever to gather enough power to be of use. He was still restricted to having to draw almost half his chakra reserves worth of natural energy in order to enter Sage mode, a major drawback that he compensated by having the two Toad Elders fuse with his shoulders and draw natural energy for him, which made his Sage mode even more unrefined and wasteful. If there was one thing Naruto hated was waste energy. It was one thing to throw overpowered jutsu just because he could, and entirely another thing to waste 50 kg bunshin worth of chakra while only making one. Which was a rather good analogy to Jiraiya's wasteful Sage mode. Tsunade on the other hand, well, her control was perfect, as expected of a senju. But her ability to draw natural energy into her was somewhat lacking. Simply put, she was unable to draw the energy fast enough. Given enough time, she would be able to gather as much as 3 times her chakra reserves in natural energy and still have perfect control. However, they rather doubted an enemy would go take a nap for at least half a day in order for her to gather that much power. On the other hand, she could easily use even the tiniest sliver of senjutsu chakra she had perfectly, making it so she didn't actually need to enter Sage mode properly. In fact, as the Fuin who helped her train could testify, as long as her eyes were yellow rather than her usually honey brown, she could enhance herself well enough in a pseudo-Sage mode. And she was getting better at a steady pace. Naruto was willing to bet that had she been able to train Sage mode in a diorama sphere, she would have surpassed her grandfather in senjutsu already. Unfortunately, no matter how thick the magic was in the air within the diorama spheres, it was not natural enough to be of use for senjutsu. Still, what is he trying to achieve? Naruto wondered before his eyes caught a certain emotion growing in intensity in Orochimaru's eyes, making Naruto smirk. Ah, of course. You don't actually think I'm going to tire anytime soon, are you? Naruto quipped, and from the slight narrowing of the snake Sannin's eyes he had struck gold. Or rather, you expect the shroud to begin taking its toll on my body, yes. I admit, I was expecting to see your body erode from the Yuki for more than a few minutes. I suppose that since you had the Kyuubi placed in you right after birth, you would have gained a higher level of resilience to it than other Jinchuriki. Orochimaru admitted as he drew the sword once more, now coating it with wind chakra. I'm sure Gaara was even more accustomed to it before the extraction, what with the Ichibi being sealed in him while he was still in the womb. Naruto shot back, deciding not to point out that being an inhuman himself now he did not have to worry about Yuki poisoning, especially since the Yuki he was using was his, attuned him alone. Unfortunately, I grow bored of this stalemate. So, power surged from Naruto, disintegrating his skin and allowing his blood to intermingle with the demon shroud, soon becoming a draconian-looking blood shroud that hid him from view, the 7 tails behind him swishing dangerously. A moment later a Yuki-charged roar erupted from Naruto's mouth, the blast sending Orochimaru skidding away, blasting through boulders and trees that stood in the way. Excellent. Orochimaru hissed as he watched the beast before him. Not we can play. Forming a few hand signs, he slammed both hands into the ground. Doden. Retsudo Tensho. Orochimaru grinned as ground all around Naruto began to spiral inwards on itself, intending to crush him. In response to the Konoha Nin jumping into the air, Orochimaru brought a hand to his mouth and spat out a ball of compressed air, a futon, Atsugai, at Naruto before slamming it back into the earth, declaring, Doden. Ganshuso. Before the Sannin had even finished speaking, dozens of stone spears erupted from the ground and headed towards Naruto from below, ready to hit the mid-air former Jinchuriki at the same time as the wind ninjutsu. Only to splatter ineffectively over the barrier surrounding Naruto, which flashed a translucent blue before becoming invisible once more. What? Orochimaru hissed incomprehensively. The effect looked just like Pain's gravity attacks, but it's clearly something different. Besides, while no longer merely the Sharingan or Byakugan, it's no Rinnegan, so gravity should be out of his reach. Tisk. How about this? Doden. Dosakiryu. He called out after a quick 5 hand signs. The earth and stone dragon erupted from the ground and slammed into Naruto's barrier uselessly as well, and it was only as he stared at him in irritation did Orochimaru notice something. You can fly, even without those mismatched wings you used 3 years ago, Orochimaru hissed in annoyance. Took you long enough. Naruto stated quite calmly despite the demonic timbre of his voice. Unfortunately, it took you too long. And then as the thick cloud of dust caused by dragon finally thinned enough, Orochimaru saw it, and once again felt fear as he stared at Naruto. For in his hands, under the cover of the Snake Sannin's last Doden ninjutsu, as ball of energy had for size of his head, very much like a Rasengan. But it was no Rasengan. It was, in fact, what the Rasengan was inspired from, the deadly ball of destruction that made the Biju the most feared beings to walk the land. As Orochimaru watching in horror, he ball compressed until it was the size of a small marble, at which point Naruto clenched his gauntleted fist around it. Why is he? Orochimaru began to wonder, only for his eyes to widen as with a small pulse the fist began to tremble and smoke. Curse him. I can't let that him me. Drawing blood as he jumped back as far as he can before slamming both bloodied palms into the ground. Kachiyose. Sanju Rashomon. 3 humongous armored gates rose from the ground in succession before Orochimaru just as Naruto's steaming fist opened to unleash a thin crimson-orange beam of destruction that shot straight at Orochimaru. Within an instant of them being summoned, the gates were enveloped in an immense explosion that blew them away into nothingness. It took a couple minutes for the cloud of dust to settle and Naruto returned to his regular form, dismissing his demon shroud, iron blood gauntlets and bone tails as well as deactivating his dojutsu, which was currently not that useful with the amount of energy pulsing through the air from the explosion. Tapping into his Riryoku, which turned his good eye yellow, Naruto tried to sense Orochimaru. A few seconds of trying later, he felt the Sannin's signature and turned his attention that way, activating the Gokei Byakugan in order to see, if nothing else, the Sannin's blood circulatory system. And, sure enough, the flow of blood was stopped, but the blood is too thick. Naruto realized, but before he knew it a stone pillar almost as thick as he was tall erupted from his side diagonally and lifted him from the ground, but it kept going and going until it curved and began pushing Naruto towards the ground. After a more 20 seconds, Naruto was being slammed and sandwiched on the other side of the now ruined Tenchi Bridge. Fuck it, Naruto swore at the telltale sound of paper tags hissing around him. Shinra Tensai. He growled and blew away not just the stone attempting to turn him into a pancake, but the likely hundreds of explosive tags implanted into the part of the pillar nearest to him. Moments after the explosion that utterly destroyed every trace of the bridge on the side the Konoha Nin had come from, Naruto walked out of the smoke unharmed, only a bit dirty. Report. Naruto said calmly as 3 blurs appeared before him in a burst of speed, taking the forms of Tenzo, Enko and Tayuya. Both of Orochimaru's subordinates are dead, Tenzo replied. We've already sealed away their bodies. Enko continued before adding just for him. And we took all the information they have in their souls, I with Kabuto and Tayuya with Gurren. Kin-chan will be getting more than a few new Shoten ninjutsu. Tayuya added. Good. Naruto nodded approvingly. Orochimaru is running away. And we shall pursue him. Anko, I take it your snakes are already following his trail. I mean, do you know where he's going? Yes. Anko nodded. Very well. Take 20-minute break, and then we're going after him. Tenzo, let me heal that. Naruto offered and began healing the deep gash on the other man's arm. Soon enough, the allotted time was up and Anko began leading them across the land of grass. It was almost evening when they reached the location, and a quick scan with the Byakugan confirmed that not only it was the right place, but another person of interest was there as well. Sasuke Uchiha is here as well. Naruto informed Tenzo. Go for the kill. From what I got out of Orochimaru, he's been infused with the Shoden Hokage's DNA to strengthen him. Half-hearted attacks won't harm him. Also, Anko added, you should avoid his eyes. Unlike Tayuya, Naruto and I, you don't have Sharingan to protect you from his genjutsu. Getting caught in a Tsukuyomi could spell death with people as fast as Orochimaru around, the Uchiha as well, probably. In that case, he should avoid Orochimaru's eyes as well. Tayuya added offhandedly. Even if the snake sucker doesn't have the Mangekyo, even a regular Sharingan can be dangerous when it comes to genjutsu. I'll be fine. Tenzo said somewhat amused. I've been around Kakashi Senpai long enough how to deal with a Sharingan. Itachi Uchiha as well. Good point. Naruto chuckled. And Orochimaru has always sucked at genjutsu. He usually needs to anchor them with seals. I doubt his skill suddenly jumped to cage level just with the Sharingan. Alright, I'll take us inside. Hold on. Anko instructed and her shadow and others around them darkened to pitch black and merged before swallowing them up and moments later depositing them inside the tunnels of the underground hideout, a few corridors away from Sasuke. One more thing. Naruto said quietly. While it's perfectly alright to go for the kill, we don't want to get buried alive so. Yeah, no overpowered area effect jutsu on the fucker. Tayuya scowled, knowing that this was for Tenzu's sake rather than theirs. The last instructions delivered, the four of them stealthily moved towards Sasuke's room, only stopping outside. A few Anbu hand signals from Naruto had Anko creating a few shadow snakes and slithering them through the small crack under the door before moving to bind Sasuke long enough to take him down. However, fuck. Naruto swore and slammed his hands into the ground just as the room in front of them as well as most of their surroundings exploded rather violently. A few seconds later, the steel Naruto had created around then was destroyed with a pulse of magic cancel allowing the Konoha 9 to look straight at Sasuke's current location, looking down at them from above, the explosion having created a large opening to the outside. Well, someone has been polishing up on his sensory skills. Naruto remarked. But then again, it's probably just from the Shoden's cells in you. He was, after all, one of the greatest censors that ever lived. Uzumaki. Sasuke Uchiha spat hatefully. You're the last person who should talk about this, you filthy thief. On the contrary, Uke-chan, Fuin actually assimilate and make the bloodlines we take fully ours. Anko smirked. Unlike a cocksucker like you and your bad buddy Orochimaru who just glue stuff on and hope it works. Tayuya mocked. Though I have to say, Uke-chan, I just love the new eyes. Naruto smirked. I remember them quite well you see, after all, I'm the last person Fugaku Teme saw with them, before I killed him. Uzumaki. Sasuke snarled and seemed to be about to jump down and attack the blonde, before he got a sick gleam in his eyes and activated his Ain Mangekyo Sharingan and locked eyes with Anko. Tsukuyomi, he hissed. A second later, however, he was flinching away and looking at Anko in shock and rage. What's the matter, Uke-chan? Anko taunted, running away. You bitch, you stole our eyes as well. Sasuke raged as he looked at the Mangekyo in Anko's eyes. Before he could continue, wood beams erupted from the ground around him and wrapped around him, restricting his movements. Go him. Tenzo smiled in satisfaction. Quinquaginta lancier umbri. Anko called out as 50 shadow spears shot from her hands towards the rogue Uchiha. Iaculatio fulguris. Naruto declared at the same time, materializing a few dozen spears of lightning that shot at Sasuke. Amaterasu. Tayuya finished as a stream of black flames shot from her eyes straight at Sasuke. Before the attacks could hit, however, a couple stone walls erupted before the youngest Uchiha, protecting him from most of the onslaught, though a few of the lightning spears did pierce through. Ah, yes, I was wondering when you'd get here, Orochimaru, Naruto remarked. You should watch your mouth around your betters, Teyuya. Orochimaru hissed as he allowed the stone walls to crumble to reveal someone pierced by Naruto's lightning spears, but it was not Sasuke. Well, you certainly don't. Naruto grit his teeth at the sight of Kabuto pulling out the spears out of his undead body. And for the record, she's fantastic with her mouth when she wants to. That's Kabuto? Tenzo asked in shock. He revived him with the Edo Tensei. Anko spat in annoyance. Of course, I can't have you stealing my best medic from me, can I? Orochimaru grinned viciously at the Konoha nin. Though they did not say it out loud, the Fuin knew he was right on the mark. Kabuto was without a doubt one of Orochimaru's most valued assets, being the one that managed to safely fuse Hashirama Senju's cells to Sasuke as well as implant the Sharingan into Orochimaru's vessel in a way that it worked perfectly. The memories Anko had recently ripped from Kabuto's soul said as much. Of course, you care for your subordinates so much, after all. Naruto remarked dryly. But then again, Kabuto and Sasuke needing someone to bail them out is not unexpected at all. It happened again and again, after all. You filthy Uzumaki scum. Sasuke snarled before smirking evilly as he brought his left hand up, encasing it in lightning not unlike a Chidori. However, fuck. Naruto hissed as he saw the clouds in the sky darkening while he felt the natural energy in them resonating to Sasuke's chakra. Disappear with the thunderclap. Sasuke declared with a maniacal grin. Kirin. He brought his hand down. The lightning in the cloughs converged into a single form, that of a mythical beast, the Kirin, before it descended as if pulled by Sasuke's hand toward the enemies before him. The Uchiha never noticed the glow of a rectangle in Naruto's hand, but Orochimaru did, remembering it quite well. Adeet. The lightning fell, heading straight at the Konoha group, and was erased on contact with a very large sword, often seen in the hands of Asuna Kagarazaka Fuin. NC's exorcisans. Naruto said quietly as Sasuke gaped at him in abject shock at the ineffectiveness of his S-rank Raiden ninjutsu. I am impossible. The Uchiha hissed in shock and rage. Enough Sasuke-kun, we're leaving. Orochimaru declared as Kabuto finished unrolling a scroll that wrapped around the three of them and with a puff of smoke they were gone. Tisk. Reverse summoning. How annoying. Naruto grumbled. Naruto, we need to get out of here now, Teyuya said urgently. I know. Naruto muttered as golden chains erupted from his back and wrapped around the other three before they disappeared the black flash of his Hiraishin. Less than a minute later, the entire hideout exploded from the likely thousands of explosive tags Orochimaru has set up, erasing any chance of the Konoha ninja recovering something. Hokage's office, a few hours later. Well, the mission was a success, I suppose. Tsunade must as she glanced between Anko and Teyuya who had gained all of Kabuto's and Guren's memories respectively. I beg your pardon, Hokage-sama, but we failed to capture, Tenzo began in confusion. The goal was information gathering. Tsunade cut him off before adding at a mental confirmation from Naruto. And with Anko using her Rinnegan to rip out Kabuto's soul, she gained a portion of his memories. Or rather all of them. So now it's only a matter of her either telling us or writing down all the useful or relevant information. I've already set a few Kage Bunshin to write things down. Anko nodded. Give me a day and I'll have all Kabuto knows of Akatsuki and Orochimaru written down. Though, there's something you should know now. She seemed to hesitate. What is it? Tsunade frowned. The masked man, the shadow leader of Akatsuki, is not Madara Uchiha. It's Obito Uchiha, Kakashi and Rin's old teammate, Anko revealed. I found it unusual that he could use the Kamui with only Kakashi's Sharingan I having it before Kyuubi forced it to awaken in my Mangekyo as well years ago. But I merely thought Madara found Obito's body and the right eye was intact. Naruto scowled. Then it was Obito who set controlled Kyuubi to attack Konoha? Teyuya asked curiously. I mean, Kyuubi said she felt Madara's chakra. She did say she felt something different in it. Naruto must. That's because Obito's right half is mostly a Zetsu, and Zetsu are artificial humans grown from Hashirama Senju's cells. Anko revealed. He also has some of Madara in him, though not even Orochimaru is sure what exactly it is. What we need to worry about now is that Obito is growing an entire army of Zetsu. Last time Kabuto saw that place, there were hundreds of them, and all could use Mokuton. Do you know where it is? Tsunade demanded as the desk was crushed under her grip. No, only Obito and Black Zetsu are aware of the location. Everyone else is being taken there either by Obito's Kamui or by reverse summoning. Anko shook her head. Black Zetsu is dead. I absorbed him. Naruto frowned. No, you only got White Zetsu and a bit of Black Zetsu who overrode White Zetsu's memories. Anko grumbled. Apparently. While White Zetsu was pretty much mass-produced, there's only one Black Zetsu, and he's much more slippery and dangerous. He's more like Obito's partner than subordinate. And the real Madara? Naruto asked. Dead, though Kabuto suspects he awakened the Rinnegan since he had infused himself with Hashirama's cells after they fought at the Valley of the End. Anko replied. Also, Kabuto had thoughts of bringing him back with the Edo Tensei without telling Orochimaru, though he never got to it. Can someone revived by Edo Tensei use it to bring back others? Tenzo asked out of nowhere. The Fuin blinked and considered it, and found themselves without an answer. That's a good question. Naruto admitted, and if it does work we're kinda fucked. Cause, you see, even if the summoner dies, those summoned by Edo Tensei will stick around unless they have orders to be dismissed when their assigned tasks are done. So Orochimaru orders Kabuto to summon him with Edo Tensei in case he dies and then dismiss himself. We'll have a truly immortal Orochimaru to deal with. Actually, Orochimaru set up his more recent cursed seals with a form of summoning resurrection Fuinjutsu, to revive him in a human body fully compatible to him by draining the life force and senjutsu chakra out of those that bear his cursed seal. The Uchiha Runt's seal is like that, as are a few others he keeps locked up in a few places across the elemental nations. In that case we need to get rid of them. Tsunade scowled. Make sure to write down the locations of his hideouts and the identities of his spies in double exemplary at least. We'll be sending all we know about Orochimaru's dealings in the other 5 nations as well as out allies to their cage and the ninja leaders. The faster we wipe out Orochimaru's influence, the better we can limit his usefulness to the Akatsuki. Right, I'll do that. Though I warn you that even Kabuto was aware that Orochimaru had several other hideouts he only knew of, Anko said. Hopefully, most of them were among those we destroyed years ago, Tayuya pointed out. We'll see. Tsunade frowned. Dismissed, she told Tenzo, who nodded and disappeared with a shunshin. So, what do you think of him? A bit quiet, but I like him. Naruto smiled. I've been examining him with my dojutsu and I haven't found anything. If he passes a medical check from you, then I'm more than willing to work with him. Good to hear. Tsunade nodded in satisfaction. Still, Obito, Uchiha, Kakashi and Rin will not be happy to hear this, she said grimly. Well, at least they'll have little Tsukumo to focus on so they won't let themselves get too depressed, if only for his sake. Naruto smiled slightly. I still can't believe that crazy fucker is letting his kid wear a mask at his age. The brat's barely fucking 2 years old. Tayuya shook her head in disbelief. Kakashi was the same at his age, his father as well. It's a family tradition, you could say. Tsunade snorted, remembering the White Fang wearing a mask when they entered the ninja academy together. Let's just hope Rin can keep the kid away from Jiraiya's smut duets the academy. Anko smirked. That should be your responsibility, Naruto, as his godfather. Tsunade smirked. Godfather, Naruto sighed, remembering his near panic attack when he was offered the position. Maybe I should ask Jiraiya for advice, he suggested with a grin. No, was the unanimous response from those in the room, much to his amusement. Akatsuki and Jinchuriki on the move. It had been a few months since Naruto and his team had returned from their mission to gather information on Orochimaru, and things had seemed to settle down on the surface. In reality, the Fuin had almost all taken missions across the elemental nations, which were being undertaken by their respective Chishio Bunshin, while the originals were scouting the isolated underground areas that could be used to hide Obito's current hideout. They had no luck so far, however, as while they had indeed found a series of underground caverns under the spot Obito Uchiha had supposedly died on, it was obvious that the place had been abandoned for several years, perhaps even a decade. During this search, they had managed to gather a bit more information on the White Zetsu's proficiency in Mokuton ninjutsu from the traces the various roots had left through the earth. It was quite obvious that the place had served as Madara Uchiha's base for decades, probably even since the battle against the Shoden Hokage, Hashirama Senju, which the Uchiha had lost despite Kyuubi's forced assistance. From the traces of chakra and the leftover tissue samples, they had concluded that Madara had managed to grow around 3 to 4 dozen White Zetsu at the maximum. It was also quite noticeable that the White Zetsu were composed almost entirely of Hashirama Senju's Mokuton enhanced cells, leading them to being more plant than human. Due to their identical chakras, Ino theorized that not only could the White Zetsu work together as well as a person's Kage Bunshin could, but they might also share a telepathic link. Also, due to their bodies being so intimately tied to the Shoden's Mokuton, Jiraiya and Tsunade had reason to believe that the White Zetsu may be able to passively draw on natural energy and maintain a state of perpetual pseudo-sage mode, which would explain their characteristic luminous yellow eyes despite the fact that they should have the same black eyes as Hashirama Senju, considering that most of their facial features were the same as well. However, it was all suddenly put on hold when an urgent message from Takigakure reached Konoha. 5 hours ago, an emergency request from Takigakure arrived. Tsunade eyed the 12 ninja gathered before her. Missing nin of Takigakure Kazuzu and missing nin of Yugakure Hidan had attacked the village and killed several members of their village council. They left, leaving the threat that it would happen again should they not surrender Fu, the Nanabi Jinchuriki, to them. Let me guess, they handed her over immediately, Naruto scowled. They were about to, but did not get the chance to do so. Tsunade smirked. Shibuki, the village head, disclosed to Fu the information regarding the Akatsuki's demands and she went rogue the next day, which makes it almost a week since then. Shibuki chose to send this message through a few proxies to avoid the Akatsuki's spies. But that also means that she might have been already captured. Kakashi frowned as he stood at the head of Team 8, gaining nods from Asuma, who led Team 10, and Naruto, who led Team 11, who now also had Negi in addition to Haku and Evangeline. It's a possibility, Shizune admitted. However, from what is known about the previous Nanabi Jinchuriki, they tend to gain the ability to grow insect wings like their tenant. So she might avoid the Akatsuki's attention by staying in the sky most of the time she travels. Naruto smirked. Nice. This way not only she avoids the notice of Akatsuki's regular informants, but by staying off the ground she's off White Zetsu's detection grind completely. It might be a good idea to follow her example. Being above the ground will give me a bit more range with my Byakugan. Hinata admitted. It would be best that I fly above while the rest of our team tracks on the ground, Kakashi Taicho agreed. Kakashi nodded with a dual-eye smile. You will have to scout the land of waterfall, land of bear, land of sound, land of grass, northern land of fire and eastern land of earth. Tsunade indicated on a map. What about the land of rain? Naruto asked with a frown. They will consider it an invasion if we are found within their borders, Tsunade scowled. Why aren't we invading them again? Eva asked in annoyance. They are, after all, hosting the Akatsuki. Hell, their leader is the head of AIM. Politics. Asuma sighed. The AIM daimyo is the cousin of our own fire daimyo, as well as married to the newest wind daimyo's sister. If we invaded them, our daimyo would throw a hissy fit. And Sunagakure would end up with even higher constraints than the previous wind daimyo placed on them. Most of the water in the land of wind comes from commerce with the land of rain. Kakashi sighed. As serious as a criminal organization controlling the Biju sounds, people in the land of wind dying of thirst would be a greater priority to the daimyo. Unlike the previous one, this guy actually seems to care about his people and not just his own pockets. And Gaara would be quite cross with us if we screw things over for them after he struggled for almost 3 years to bring Sunagakure to something resembling stability. Naruto nodded. So, in conclusion, Konoha can't invade the land of rain. Hence why in the event that you do not find Fu in the areas I assigned you, you will use Henge to look like Otto Nin and then scout the land of rain. Tsunade smirked, tossing each of them an Otogakure headband, likely captured during the Orochimaru's failed invasion. Gotcha. Naruto nodded in understanding. You leave within the hour. You need to find her as soon as possible, Tsunade instructed. We're bringing her to Konoha, right? Haku inquired as she accepted the foreign headband and stored it in her pouch. I rather doubt Takigakure will be welcoming her back considering the fact that they were about to sell her off to the Akatsuki. She will be welcome in Konoha. Tsunade agreed. Since Konoha and Taki are allies and they were about to exile her, we will be able to induct her as a Konoha ninja immediately without any political unrest worth mentioning. Kumo and Iwa might try to mumble a bit about how they each lost a Jinchuriki to us, even if it was with their agreement, but nothing significant or worth worrying about. She shrugged. Now then, here are you assigned areas. She quickly tossed a scroll to each team leader. So I've got Land of Grass and Land of Earth. Asuma nodded as he inspected his scroll. Land of Waterfalls and Land of Bear, Kakashi remarked. That leaves me with Land of Sound and Land of Fire. Naruto must. Though somehow I doubt I will run into the white snake there. True enough. Tsunade agreed. Okay, let's move. Kakashi rolled his scroll and stored it away. We have a lot of land to cover and little time to do it. You can say that again. Asuma frowned. It will take us a day at least to reach to borders of the Land of Fire even if we push it. No need. Naruto shook his head. I've had my summons set up quite a lot of my Hiraishin seals along the borders ever since that mess with Gaara's capture a while back. I'll teleport you all as close as I can to your respective search areas. That's good to hear. Kakashi grimaced. What's wrong, Kakashi, still not used to the Hiraishin? Evangeline taunted while Naruto stabbed a marked kunai into the ground to serve as a return point. No, the copy nin replied shortly. Okay, Team 8 first. Naruto spoke up and chakra chains erupted from him and grabbed hold of Shino, Oshizu, Hinata and Kakashi before all five of them disappeared in a flash. Appearing near the border between the Land of Fire and Land of Bear, Naruto dismissed the chains. The land here, with Land of Sound northeast, Naruto explained. Good luck and good hunting. He wished them before leaning to give Hinata a quick kiss. Be careful, he whispered before teleporting back to the Hokage office. Next up Team 10. He repeated the process with Asuna, Choji, Shikamaru and Ino, teleporting them to the border of the Land of Fire and the Land of Grass. Land of Grass is west of here, with Land of Rain southwest. Good luck and good hunting, he told them before leaning to steal a kiss from Ino, who quickly pulled him to deepen the kiss for a few more seconds. Be careful. You too, Ino whispered before he returned to Konoha. Okay, let's move out. Naruto's chains wrapped around Negi, Haku and Evangeline, and after a nod to Tsunade they teleported to the border of the Land of Fire and Land of Rain. Land of Rain, Eva must as he eyed the surroundings. We'll travel by air mostly along the border. Keep your Byakugan at full range. If they captured Fu, this is where they'll be heading unless they have a better hideout elsewhere. Takigakure is about as close to a Megakure as Sunagakure was to the place they took Gaara to, after all. True enough. Evangeline agrees as she unfurled two black bat-like wings, while Negi did the same with black feathered ones and Haku with white feathered ones. A moment later, Naruto's own wings, one black and bat-like and the other white and feathered, spread and they took to the sky. True, Eva, Negi and Naruto could easily fly without wings, but it required more focus than using their wings. Also, this way Haku did not feel left out. As expected, the scouting took several days, thus stretching their patience and quickly diminishing their hopes of finding Fu alive. Soon enough, the fifth day had passed and they had all but reached the sea that was the northern border of the Land of Sound. During their aerial scouting they had ran across a few Auto Nin, but they were merely flunkies that had been ordered to stand guard over a certain area. After the failed invasion of Konoha, the numbers of ninja Orochimaru had at his disposal had dropped from a few thousand to barely a couple hundred. Even those that had not been involved directly in the invasion had been mostly taken out during the numerous raids of the hideouts Naruto knew of from his memories. Only Orochimaru's quick thinking of creating a few new ones had allowed him to keep as many subordinates as he still had. As it was, just as they were about to land to take a break near the end of the fifth day, they had to dodge a pillar of light that almost turned them to dust. As it was, Naruto and Negi had to quickly regenerate their lower bodies after they had been disintegrated. That was the Tsuchikage's dust release. Haku quickly found the culprit and her already pale complexion became even whiter. It's the Nidaime Tsuchikage, Mew. 5 o'clock. And he brought friends. Naruto grimaced as he quickly slit the slide of his throat and created a trio of Chishio Bunshin before the wound could close. Shodem and Nidaime Hokage, Hashirama and Tobirama Senju. Sandaime Raikage, and a member of the previous generation of the 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist. Kushimaru Kurarare. Quite the party. Orochimaru has been busy indeed, he's certainly earning his keep for the Akatsuki. Evangeline narrowed her eyes. Tobirama is mine. I will take on Kushimaru. I'm the most familiar among us with the silent killing. Haku added as they dodged another pillar of light. You just want another of the swords of the mist in your collection. Naruto teased, his eyes locked onto the enemies. I'll take the former Raikage. Negi must. As the most experienced in the lightning element, I should be able to predict his movements to a degree even with his Raiden no Yoroi active. Which leaves me with Hashirama and Mew. That's fine with me. Naruto activated his right A in Mangekyo Sharingan, and with it a silvery ethereal ribcage manifested around him along with a skeletal right arm in which more chakra was compressed into 3 Magatama-shaped chakra constructs that soon turned black as the flames of Amaterasu ignited them. The 3 were connected to form a tri-bladed shuriken and acted as such when Naruto threw them straight at and through the massive wood dragon Hashirama sent his way, forcing the Senju founder of Konoha to dodge like hell. It had come as quite the surprise to not just the Fuin, but Itachi as well, when Naruto accidentally manifested the Susanoo once more in a spar during his recuperation training after the Hoshigakure incident. It was a well-known fact that the Susanoo required 2 Mangekyo Sharingan eyes. The fact that Naruto could manifest it with just one was an entirely new development. It took months of testing and experimentation before they decided that the most likely cause for his ability was not only the familiarity to the Susanoo, having been using it for months already, but also the fact that his remaining eye was complete, a dojutsu beyond even the Rinnegan from which the Sharingan had descended. The original Jubi 1 had one eye, after all, and that was all it needed to devastate the world. With Naruto having the same eye, the Jubi no Mi, or the Genshogun as they had decided to call it, a second one was unnecessary, though Naruto was still looking for a way to heal his left eye. As it was, I surprised none of the Fuin when Naruto manifested it fully and compressed it around his body in a form of armor as he sky-dived towards Hashirama, Tessaiga in one hand and the ethereal Sounga. Gokuryuha! Naruto called out as he swung the Sounga at the massive wooden statue with hundreds of arms that Hashirama had formed before twisting in midair just in time to swing the Tessaiga straight into the incoming pillar of dust release Mew had sent his way. Bakuryuha! He roared as he unleashed a Kase no Kazu into the incoming jutsu, distorting it into twisters that he sent Mu's way, blasting him from the sky. The satisfaction was short-lived as a wood dragon smacked him from behind and then began constricting around him, causing the Susanoo to slowly crack under the pressure. Damn it, I'm not even using my Yuki and it's still affecting me this much. Naruto grunted before he began reinforcing his Susanoo with more and more power, or rather ki, since it was the physical aspect that was in danger at the moment, until the ethereal armor was glowing green from all the pure physical energy being pumped into it. Deciding to take it a step further, Naruto tapped into the Gelel stone he had implanted into his chest, and moments later the dragon was blasted away in pieces, leaving behind Naruto bathed in forest green power, looking like a samurai of all, 2 green Genshogun eyes glaring at Hashirama, the Tomo spinning furiously. Shinmiryu Nitoryu Ugi! Zangenken! Naruto snarled as he unleashed 2 massive parallel blades of ki from his swords straight at Hashirama. Kachiyose! Rashomon! Hashirama declared in a monotone voice as he slammed a palm onto the ground, causing a massive demonic-looking gate to emerge before it was cleaved in 3 pieces by Naruto's attack, though it provided enough resistance for Hashirama to mostly dodge, only loosing an arm which quickly reformed. Before he could do more than scowl, Naruto had to dodge the beam of dust release Mew sent his way straight from behind him. I forgot he's famous for his stealth skills. Naruto grimaced. Even with the Genshogun active, he still sneaked up on me. How did he? I see, a minor senjutsu talent. He blends enough of his chakra with the natural energy of the world that he can blend in more than even silent killing specialists can manage. Jinten! Mew began in an emotionless voice. Genkei Hikari. Hashira. Kamui. Naruto ripped open a swirling rift in space that absorbed the former Tsuchikage's jutsu before he had to use it again, this time to phase through the hundreds of three branches Hashirama created. The Mokuton. Jukai Koden already, huh? Naruto must as he phased back into reality seconds later only to air, no. This is Mokuton. Kajukai Korin. He grimaced at the sight of the numerous flowers that were releasing their poisonous pollen. It needs to go. He dismissed the Susanoo and this swords for the moment and held his hand above his head, causing chakra to quickly swirl into a massively growing sphere. Futon. Chudama Rasenshuriken. He roared as he sent the orb of swirling greenish-white chakra surrounded by four white spinning shuriken-like blades, almost the size of Gamabunta, straight into the forest of poisonous flowers. A seconds later, Naruto was thanking Negi for putting him through the paces with Koku Shundo. Otherwise he might have been caught up into the dome of swirling wind chakra half the size of Konoha that cut everything at a molecular level. As was, Negi shouting at him through their mental link to watch. Where he was aiming as he was close enough to get caught into it, Naruto didn't know what the red-haired genius was complaining about. With his lightning enhancement, Negi was several hundreds times faster than he currently was, at the very least. Much to his satisfaction, Naruto quickly managed to locate at least one of his opponents when the jutsu died down, a Mew who was in the process of putting himself together. Can't have that, now can we? Naruto smirked and seconds later he was at Mu's side, having captured him in chakra chains as soon as he was in range before grabbing his head and ripping out his soul. Implanted in the regenerating undead body through the power of the human path of the Rinnegan, in the process assimilating all of his memories. Letting go of the soul, he was satisfied to see that it returned to the Pure Land rather than being sucked back into the Edo Tensei construct. Use the human path of the Rinnegan to rip their souls out, it will take them out for good. Naruto informed his clan members seconds before a massive wooden fist erupted from the ground and captured him, followed by the rest of the arm and the body it was attached to. Mokuton. Mokujin no Jutsu. Hashirama declared as Oni-like statue attempted to crush Naruto, and succeeding to a degree. Gah. What's with this strength? Naruto grunted. Can't reveal the Rinnegan yet, then, you're eaten. Hokai no Perusa. He roared as he unleashed a pulse of vibrating chakra that atomized everything in a few meter radius, allowing him to escape from the grasp of the wood construct. Ematom. He snarled, pointing his left palm towards Hashirama as soon as it regenerated enough. Thimo Aramo. Moments later massive amounts of sand were converging onto Hashirama and crushing him and his pet statue into dust. Taking to the air, Naruto sped up his regeneration even further with a pulse of Yuki as he called forth Tessaiga again, though this time in its sealed state, still sheathed, entering Sage mode. Shinmeryu Kessen Ugi. Mugen Fujin. Naruto whispered in a decisive tone as he channeled the most refined and potent wind element senjutsu chakra he could manage through the whole katana before he unsheathed it in an Ei strike. Tens, hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, the number of razor-sharp wind blades rippling into existence and slicing through the sand prison continued to increase exponentially to the point that even Naruto's Genshogun lost count somewhere in the upper 100 billions. Eventually, the area around the sand prison was composed almost entirely of blades of wind and the space itself exploded spectacularly. Naruto was at this point once more immaterial, watching intently with his Genshogun for any trace of Hashirama's Edo Tensei body being restored. He knew well enough that while enough to put down even a Biju for a short while, the attack would not be enough to hinder the restoration aspect of the Edo Tensei. After all, the structure of the jutsu ensured the constructs would continuously be forced to retake to forms of the souls trapped within, to be specific the forms they had at the point of death if the DNA sample had been taken from their corpses or the forms they had at the point in life the DNA sample had been taken. As such, Naruto did not expect any sort of damage to be dealt with this Sen-nin Kenjutsu he had developed. The core of the jutsu was the blades, usually of ki, that could be launched through the Shinmeryu secret techniques. To this he added the element composition of Futon Ninjutsu, refined to the max. And to top it off, he had tapped into rarely used aspects of Senjutsu, space-time manipulation. When he had first learnt of it, he had been rather surprised, but after some thought he realized it made sense. The sage arts were used mostly by the summon clans, who were called through a space time ninjutsu from their respective dimensional pockets all the time. It made sense that they, after being subjected to it for so long, they would become in tune with the spatial and temporal aspects of nature. As such, what Naruto's Mugen Fujin did was unleash a continuous blade beam of wind from the unsheathed blade through Ei strike, the blade being transferred towards the target in pieces for rapidly opening and closing spatial rifts gravitating around the designated target, faster and faster, until the charge accumulated in the blade of the sword ran out. It had taken decades within the diorama spheres for him to master the technique to this level, and even now, it had numerous weaknesses. For one thing, it took time to enter Sage Mode, the original kind and not the kind he had created by using his internal stores of Riryoku. Not long, true, since he had mastered it, and he did not have to remain still, since as a Shinso Biju hybrid he was already recognized as part of nature, an extension of the planet itself. Secondly, his target had to already be immobilized in some form and unable to escape before the onslaught of blades increased enough to make it impossible to dodge without space-time jutsu, and even then they had to be quick about it. After all, it was incredibly risky to attempt phasing through those dimensional rifts that kept opening and closing, and even the Hiraishin and reverse summoning were not without risk. And thirdly, but most important, Naruto could not move once the attack had been initiated and had to remain in that position until the charge of Senjutsu Futon Chakra in the blade was exhausted. Otherwise, he risked anything between hitting his allies to getting pieces of himself ripped away by the very dimensional rifts he had opened. This jutsu was even more damaging than the Rasen Shuriken and its variants. While it did not affect the targets as deeply as the Rasen Shuriken, down to cellular or even molecular level, the blades of wind were bigger and could surely cleave through a body without fail. It was entirely possible for someone to manage to tuft their outer bodies enough that the needle-like blades of the Rasen Shuriken to not penetrate too deep. The steel body that steel release users could use was one possibility, and the earth spear that Kakuzu of Akatsuki could use to turn his skin into diamond were just options he could name from the top of his head. The Mugen Fujin, however, had none of the refinement of Rasen Shuriken. Oh, it looked elegant, trapping the enemy in a dome of more and more wind blades, but at its core it was a brutal overpowered wind blade that he had to use space-time senjutsu to break apart. Hell, he had initially had to create the Senfujin, which had around 1,000 blades, simply because he could not keep us with opening so many dimensional rifts in succession, small as they may be, and had to limit the wind chakra output so that it would not be wasted. As it was, he was certain that he was still wasting around a third of the Senjutsu Futon chakra he sent through the dimensional rifts, but he was improving slowly, and it was still better than the 99.83% that he had started with. Still, he had already spent an obscene amount of energy on fighting Hashirama and Miu, mostly the Shodem Hokage, though, and knew he could not afford to waste more, as well as delay Fu's rescue. His Gensh Negi take out the Sandame Reikage with the human path, while Haku had done the same to Kushimaru, though apparently it had cost her an arm and a leg, literally, which had been severed by Kushimaru's strings as she dealt the final blow. She was currently reattaching them and channeling chakra into the cuts to further accelerate the healing process. She would probably be fine within a few minutes. Even Evangeline was done, though apparently she was quite annoyed and had yet to remove Tobirama's soul. From what she could guess, the Nidaime Hokage had had so many markers around that allowed him to escape from her countless ice prisons that she had had to resort to her Apparantos Lucos Orano, the endless white nine heavens, which had an integrated anti-teleportation aspect that managed to, finally, shut down the Nidaime Hokage. Catching sight of Hashirama's regenerating head, Naruto was by it in a flash and quickly ripped out the Shodem's soul, releasing it back into the Pure Land once he had copied its memories. Orochimaru managed to control Hashirama with 60% of his power available. Huh? He quickly went through the most recent memories. Must be the cells implanted into Orochimaru's current host. Shaking his head, he hurried to Evangeline's side, where Negi was just removing Tobirama's soul while Evangeline and Haku dealt additional damage to keep him unable to focus enough on teleporting once part of the Apparantos Lucos Orano was destroyed in order for Negi to reach his head. Everyone done, I take it? Evangeline inquired. Yeah. Sorry about that Rasen Shuriken. Hashirama took me by surprise with his Kajukai Korin, so I had to act quickly. Naruto gave Negi an apologetic look. It's fine. The redhead waved off his concerns. Now about the Akatsuki hideout nearby. Right, follow me. Naruto nodded, and with that they were once again in the air. Less than a minute later, they were just above the Gedo Mazo that was in an underground hideout layered with enough seals that it was difficult for the Byakugan to see through. The blood side of the Gokei Byakugan, however, had no such issues and easily picked up on the three living beings within, the other Akatsuki members projecting their shadowy images and their chakra through the Gentashin no Jutsu. The barrier is quite something, Negi said in annoyance as his Rinne Sharingan eyes tried to find a weakness in the barrier. It's senjutsu-based, for one thing. Connected to the Gedo Mazo as well. Naruto grumbled. Which we can't destroy since we don't know what will happen. Will the Yuki inside be released, or will it blow up and take the world with it? Either way, we need to move now. Haku pointed out. Fu-san doesn't have much longer. Point. Negi sighed as he drew the pactio he had with Naruto. No, it's best if we avoid using magic cancel and void element as a whole. Remember, the barrier is connected to the Gedo Mazo and thus to the Biju already within, possibly the Nanabi as well. Naruto stopped him from summoning his artifact. Let me. He narrowed his eyes as he summoned Tessaiga, whose blade glowed crimson, its barrier-breaking powers active. Negi, you need to focus on Fu. As soon as possible, grab her and get her out of here. Haku, go with him and administer healing. Me and Evangeline will stay here and deal with Hidan and Kakuzu. However, if it looks like she won't make it, call me and I'll use the Tenseiga on her. Understood. The three nodded their assent. Kei's no Kazu, Naruto roared as he swung Tessaiga, unleashing a single massively powerful blade of demonic wind. The blade cut through the ground, the barrier and through the Genryu Kyufujin that the Akatsuki were maintaining, severing the connecting between the Gedo Mazo and Fu, the later dropping from where it was suspended in the air in front of the arms of the Gedo Mazo. Before she reached the ground, Negi materialized in all his Raiden Soso glory right in time to catch her, and in another burst of static, he was gone. The fuck? Hidan swore. Konoha nin. Pain warned his subordinates. Hidan, Kakuzu. Retrieve the Nanabi Jinchuriki immediately, he ordered before the Gedo Mazo disappeared in a bust of smoke, having been reverse summoned, the projections of the other Akatsuki members fading as well. Remember that we need the Jinchuriki alive, Kakuzu warned, having already detached his lightning mask Fred Beast. That said, all the Konoha Jinchuriki have monstrous healing powers, so feel free to maim them as much as you want. Yeah. Hidan grinned viciously, twirling his tri-blade scythe to deflect the barrier-piercing stone spears Naruto sent his way. It seems that barrier was all they had set up, that or my wind scar took them all out. Naruto must as raised the now diamantine Tessaiga above his head. Kongo Soha. Naruto declared as he swung down the fang-like sword, unleashing a barrage of diamond shards that tore Hidan apart. Well, that's one down. He turned away, only to barely dodge a slash from the scythe. Wah! The hell? Naruto whispered in shock. Hidan was alive. Naruto already knew this. The Mad Priest of Jashin was quite infamous for his inability to die. So it was no surprise that as ripped apart as he was still alive. What was unexpected, however, were the countless black threads within his body that were now allowing him to not only pull himself back together where before he would have had to rely on Kakuzu to do it for him, but also control his body parts even when detached from the main body, when the head was still in a few pieces and detached from the neck at that. The hissing of the wounds closing soon after a body part had been reattached did not escape attention either. It had been suspected that in addition to his deathlessness, Hidan had a healing factor above average. But this, the pieces too small to be put back together, were being regenerated. I see Orochimaru has been improving you, Naruto remarked, barely keeping track of Evangeline and Kakuzu's battle. You like it, you fucker? Hidan cackled. That snake actually managed to boost the blessing Jashin-sama gave me. I suppose you can put it that way. Naruto allowed, inwardly swearing to himself. Orochimaru's Juinjutsu was already similar to the Magia Arabia in how it forcefully drew ambient energy and converted it into what the host could use, plus a decent healing factor. This, however, in a way, it was even beyond the Shinso Biju regeneration that his own Magia Arabia granted him now. For once thing, he was still unsure if he would survive if his head was destroyed and did not wish to chance it. For another, he had almost no control over his severed limbs or other body parts. At best, he could use the remaining chakra and or blood in them for an action or two, but nothing like remotely controlling several body parts like that. Nevertheless, what disturbed him the most, the potent demonic energy seeped deeply in every bit of Hidan's body. He was mostly demon himself right now, but the sheer maliciousness coming from Hidan, it was more disgusting than anything short of Moryo. So this is pure demonic power, not that of a yokai, but of a Mizoku, a true demon in every definition of the word, he grimly realized. He also realized that the majority of his arsenal was useless here. He could blast Hidan to Kingdom Come, but that would not be enough to kill him. Additionally, he was unsure if it was possible to destroy his soul with his Ekmedenis Tunsaiken. For all he knew, it could very well be immune to it, and even so it was among the few spells he scared of himself, despite being the one who had created it. More so, he not only refused to keep it stored up like Negi did with his 1,000 thunderbolts, but it also required a full incantation to be stable, so unless he was able to immobilize him. Now there's a thought. A smirk made its way to his lips as he weaved through Hidan's side swipes. Making some distance, Naruto clenches his left fist, which began glowing green. Basiliski gal K2 Podan Kai Kakoin Omatwan Nin to Yu Tun Kronen Parerusan. Ni Patras. A blast erupted from his outstretched glowing fist, unleashing a greenish-gray cloud of dust that quickly enveloped Hidan. No use, fucker, I can still see. What the, my, bo, die, Hidan began arrogantly, only for seconds later to stiffen and freeze when he was fully petrified. Perfect. Now I can. Naruto began approaching the statue to seal it away, only to stop in his tracks when it began to crack, and seconds later it shattered, and from it burst out what looked like a barely held together combination of portions of Hidan's skeleton and muscles, only the still present black threads, all of it glowing a diseased purple, pulsing with malice. Without hesitation, Naruto regressed the Tessaiga into its sealed form and channeled his Kai through it, his combination of Ki and Riryoku, before unleashed several exorcising attacks. Zanmeiken ni no Tachi. Reimeiken ni no Tachi. Zanmeiken ni no Tachi Isen. He roared as he unleashed the 3 Shinryu secret techniques one after another, each slamming into Hidan's rapidly regenerating body, slowing down the process significantly but not entirely. He was about to say screw it and hit him with an army killer when Haku contacted him. Naruto, we're losing her. Not only is her body failing, but her seal is damaged beyond what Iron Negi could fix. The ice user warned him with a hint of panic. Be right there, Naruto said, and, deciding to take one last gamble, used a shundo to peer behind Hidan and grabbed his bleeding fleshy skull, Rinnegan active and tapping into the human path. A second later he teleported away, swearing in several languages, which now included English, Latin, Ancient Greek, Ancient Norse, Chinese, French, Italian and Russian, which he had learned either to progress in his magic studies or at the insistence of his clan members, before grabbing Eva and teleporting both of them to Haku's location through the Hiraishin marker on her equipment. What the hell, Naruto? Eva asked, annoyed. Jashin is older than the Life Maker and has been sealed in the demon world on Inverse Venus since before most recorded history. Naruto grimaced as he held his head in pain, trying to suppress the recently gained memories. A name of hers that you may be familiar with is Ereshkigal, the Queen of the Great Earth, goddess of Urkala, the Babylonian underworld. A demon goddess of death? Eva asked in disbelief. Really? 1 over 20.000 years old at that. Negi grimaced. How long it was sealed, and how did it get here? It was sealed during the revolt of the male gods, a couple millennia before the rise of the Greek pantheon, I think. Naruto grimaced, the healing jutsu he was applying to his head running its course. And it was sucked her by Dynamis along with everything and everyone in Inverse Venus. Thankfully, she's still trapped to a great degree, but Hidan has been tapping into more and more of her power. At this rate, it won't be long before he turns from her avatar into her incarnation. Damn it. No wonder his immortality is so potent. It reminded us about Magia Arabia. Evangeline rubbed her forehead. As the black magic of Venus, Magia Arabia is probably an offshot of Ereshkigal's power, or at least deeply connected. We can leave it for later, they're heading this way. Naruto's chakra chains wrapped around his teammates and Fu before he teleported them all to a Hiraishin marker near the Valley of the End. Now let me see Fu. He instructed, and Negi laid the mint-haired girl on the grass. Yeah, the seal needs some serious fixing, but we need to save her life first. Without further ado, he summoned his Susanoo with the Tenseiga, and with one slash the Nanabi Jinchuriki was healed. Now the seal. Evangeline muttered as she eyed the expanded array on her torso and neck. Messy, really messy. Good thing we came prepared. Naruto nodded as he drew a large scroll from a pocket dimension. Unfurling it, he revealed a copy of the key to Fu's seal that Jiraiya had acquired during a discreet trip to Takigakure. As soon as a brief inspection was made, it was clear that the Taki Council would sell Fu without hesitation if they has something to gain from it, and diverting Akatsuki's attention from them certainly qualified. Hell, Naruto was sure that the only reason they had dragged their heels in surrendering Fu to Konoha was that they were hoping for some bribes from the Akatsuki. As it was, if they were still alive this time next week, Naruto would be ending them himself. With the low security of Takigakure, hidden location or not, it had been rather easy to have a few small snake and toad summons sneak in and hide a few tags bearing his Hiraishin marker. As such, it was relatively easy to stabilize Fu's seal, even though it had been so brutally breached. It only took time, which they had in spades now that they were a country away from the only Akatsuki members they expected to be in the area. And by time, that meant almost 2.5 hours, after which Naruto did a few minor alterations to the seal for greater stability. It was not up to his admittedly high standards, but it was clear that a few Uzumaki scrolls had ended up in Taki, if not Uzumaki clan members themselves. The signs were in the seal, even if it lacked the traditional Uzumaki swirl at its core. Okay, we're done here. Naruto sighed and Negi gently placed Fu on his back. Now let's head back to Konoha. Once Fu is there, I'll go retrieve teams 8 and 10. With that he teleported them all right in front of Konoha's from gates. Yo, how did the mission go? Azumo greeted them before his eyes fell on the unconscious Fu. Is she, Katetsu began hesitantly, alive? Negi told them. Ah, good. Azumo smiled as he checked them in. What about teams 8 and 10? I'm heading to, Naruto began. Naruto, we need help now. Han, the Gobi Jinchuriki is tearing us apart. Ino desperately transmitted, and a second later Naruto was in the land of Bear, blasting a second Jinchuriki stage, Han flying with an Odama Rasengan in the gut. Report. Naruto gave Asuma a glance before giving Han his full attention again. He came out of nowhere and wants to kill us because we're from Konoha, Asuma said succinctly. Oh, he's also insane and has temper issues. He added at the roar of loathing that Han sent their way. You don't say. Naruto muttered, quickly creating a few cage bunshin that quickly gathered the wounded members of Team 10 and Asuma. We have Fu. I had just finished teleporting my team to Konoha. These cage bunshin will get you there as well. Wait, we can still help, Asuma began. It's not about that. Naruto narrowed his eyes at the forming Baijudama. He's after me, it's personal. Ah. Asuma nodded grimly. Good luck then. A second later Team 10 and their sensei was gone, and Han had unleashed his Baijudama straight at Naruto in beam form. A Kamui later, the attack was sucked away and Naruto was upon the rogue Iwa Jinchuriki. Atlas Barros. Naruto roared and a massive magic circle manifested above Han, only for a second later to slam down into him, creating a massive crater. But the gravity spell was clearly not enough to take down the rabid Jinchuriki, as hundreds of blood shroud arms erupted and tried to capture Naruto, who took to the air. Cosmic catastrophe. He froze the entire area solid in a gigantic glacier. Break, he commanded, and it all shattered. And from within burst a fully manifested Gobi. Namikaze. The beast roared, revealing that Han was still the one on control, or at least the mind behind the madness. You're beginning to piss me off, you know, and I've had a trying day already. Naruto scowled as he held his right hand out to the side, the glyphs of the Magia Arabia glowing crimson. Emitum. Stagnate. Cathartirio Typhonus. He incanted as 3 large orbs of swirling wind magic were unleashed from their delayed state and compressed. Peeplementum pro armationum. Kazetsu Akuma 3. He whispered as he became the wind. Seconds later, Han's world was agony as Naruto broke apart into razor winds again, and again and again, every time dealing crippling wounds before retaking human form for a few seconds to inspect his opponent and then restarting the onslaught. This went on for a few minutes, until Naruto began to feel that the stability of his body was at risk, at which point he dismissed the wind charges as an attack straight into the gobi's side, tearing a hole straight through its body and causing Han to finally collapse, releasing his tailed beast form. He's actually unconscious, the blonde remarked in surprise. Then again, as a missing nin working solo, with all 5 great ninja nations cooperating in hunting him down, he must have been run ragged over the past 3 years, and before that he was in prison. And the little I know about Iwa's prisons does not inspire confidence in the health of those held there. He reasoned, before swearing and teleporting to where Han was, or rather had been. Not only a closing swirl in space remained through which Naruto managed to begin sending a Rasengan, only for it to close after less than a tenth had made it thorough, destabilizing the rest and forcing him to dispel it. Fuck, he swore loudly, while punching the ground hard enough for a Tsunade-type crater to form. What a fucking day. First we have to fight 3 former Kage and a former Mist Swordsman, then we find Fu on the brink of death, followed by the discovery that an ancient demon death goddess has sneaked into Akatsuki ranks, and now they got their hands on Han, and I have no idea where he took him. Can this day get any worse? Mentally growled before dusting himself off and teleporting to Hinata's side, the team led by Kakashi already en route to Konoha, having been informed of Fu's successful retrieval. Teleporting them before the Konoha gates, he and Hinata hurried to the Fuin compound where they expected Fu to have been taken. What happened? Tsunade asked, as soon as she caught sight of him. Beat down Han in full Biju form, then Akatsuki snuck in and stole him away, Naruto replied, a muscle in his jaw twitching from how hard he was clenching his teeth. Damn it. No clue where he was taken, then? Tsunade asked. Probably AIM. Naruto admitted, however. Yeah. Tsunade sighed. How's Fu? Naruto inquired. She's all right. Tsunade smiled slightly. Also, it turns out that the Nanabi is actually Princess Theodora of the old Hellas Empire. That's great news. Naruto grinned before noticing the look in her eyes. What's the bad news? Zazie and Poyo Rainy Day were also sealed inside the Nanabi. Tsunade grimaced. Until they were sucked into the Ghetto Mazo, you mean? Naruto closed his eyes. Yes. The end. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.